was so that, by local, I simply mean within North Carolina. And we're looking at the various ballot measures, possibly in Maine and maybe another try in Alaska, at getting rid of ranked choice voting, particularly as we head into the federal midterms. And one of the things that we're doing that I would urge all of you to do with your members is to encourage them to become election officials, not poll watchers, not working for a campaign, but going inside and being the person who checks the IDs, counts the ballots, and does all of that. I know many of you have done this in the past, the recruiting. There are organizations here that do training. The Election Integrity Network has done a great job of this. First, really deploying it in Virginia, where I live, in 2021 in the Glenn Youngkin election year. And we recruited over 4,000 new election officials, right of center, got them trained and inside the polls all across Virginia, targeting the areas we're most concerned about. And it was phenomenally effective. And that is without changing a single law, not a single regulation, and without a single executive action. All of you can do this where you live. And if you've never done it before, contact the Election Integrity Network. They are operating in most states now doing these trainings. And it really, I mean, for all of us, wouldn't you feel a lot better if you were counting the ballots, or your allies or your friends? I know I certainly would. Doesn't mean that's the only issue, but when we have our folks inside, it's an amazing deterrent to bad behavior, and it gives us a check on the system. It's worked very well in Virginia and the majority of states where this has been deployed, but I would urge you all, the average age of poll workers is still over 65. That's because many of them are retired and have the time to do it, but we need to keep refreshing that pool of election officials. The left still outnumbers us on the inside of these polls, and we need to catch them and pass them so that our people really effectively are running elections day to day, all while we make the kind of changes. You heard Garland talk about the decertification of really machines that should have never been certified in the first place. All those kinds of efforts all have to continue in parallel, and we're going to continue doing that at the Election Transparency Initiative. For those of you who are unaware, I want to draw your attention to an important occurrence, ironically enough, on Christmas Eve. The U.S. Postal Service changed their rules officially for dating mail. These are date stamps that land on mail. I suspect that most of you, like me, would like to see as little mail-in voting as possible. Certainly that is the position of the Election Transparency Initiative, and it's something we work toward. We still want voting to be easy, but we want it to be secure and transparent and auditable. And mail-in voting, as Jimmy Carter himself said, 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, is the least secure form of voting. And now we have the Postal Service changing their date stamp rules in ways that are going to make, frankly, just create controversies in elections because of the importance of that date stamp in counting when a ballot is received in about a third of our states. So I just mentioned to you that Ohio just passed a law where they will stop accepting ballots after Election Day, period, which we believe is the best practice. Now, I should say the exception to that is for overseas and military ballots, which they still grant 4 extra days to come in because of the distance those are coming. Nonetheless, that will allow them really to count and announce election results like Florida does. Florida's the gold standard for big states. On election night, we've all seen Florida throw 6 million votes up on the board 1 hour after their polls close. And that's because they've been processing ballots for a week, not counting them, but they prepare them for counting on election day. So on election day, they're able to get their counts up fast, leaving as little time as possible for nefarious behavior, and dramatically increasing the confidence of people in Florida in the count and the outcomes. So, what can each of you do in response to this Postal Service change? I would urge all of us on the right who believe that mail-in voting is already insecure to be careful not to take an "I told you so" messaging attitude. I would suggest more of a tisk tisk. This is unfortunate, and the post office keeps performing worse and worse, which is statistically true. And we should properly question the credibility of the role of the Postal Service in our elections, and then suggest ways to, it's different from every state, right? Suggest ways to reduce that reliance and to increase in-person voting. Now, one side avenue the other side may try to use is ballot boxes. We all know how unsecure those can be. So we need to be on guard for that. But I would just respectfully suggest that we will make more progress with honey than vinegar in response to this situation. This is going to be a big deal. You're going to hear about it throughout 2026. We may even see political pressure, I'm sure we will, on the post office to make some changes in this respect. I don't know that we need to weigh into that. Nonetheless, it is an acknowledgement, frankly, of the declining quality and reliability of the Postal Service and its participation in elections. So you can follow me on Twitter at Ken Cuccinelli. The election transparency website is electiontransparency.org. And Steve, I want to say to you and to everybody on here who works so hard all across the country to help improve our elections, that work is never going to end. We're always going to need to be vigilant. We're always going to need to be looking to improve our elections and to recruit new people who believe, as we do, that voting should be easy to do, but cheating should be very hard. Easy to vote, hard to cheat. And that requires secure, transparent, and auditable election systems all across the country. Thank all of you for your efforts in pursuing that. I guarantee you we will continue to do that here at the Election Transparency Initiative throughout the year. Steve, thanks again for having me, and it's great to see all of you.
Well, thank you, and we'll watch you on Fox tonight or tomorrow when you come on. Take care. You all see I'm wearing my I went to
we couldn't miss it.
So my grandson works for the team, and he spent 3 days watching every game that Ole Miss played. So I want to shout out to him and wish him good luck. Our next guest is David Cross, a veteran election activist, a financial advisor for 30 years. Dave, you want to come down? And as I'm bringing him on, I'm watching on the side here a TV program where General Flynn is on, and we hope he makes it at 2:30. So I'm going to get together with him and try to see. He's on Human Events right now. So we have TVs all around here just to make sure everybody shows up. So David, you want to come down? You want to unmute him, Raj?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Okay, you're up.
All right. Can you hear me all right?
A little bit louder.
A little bit louder. I'm going to have to get a little closer then. All right. So for those that don't know me, my name's David Cross. And are you guys having difficulty with the audio?
You're good.
Got it. Okay. So my background is, I'm a financial advisor. My job is to look for patterns and look for the facts and try to question things. I got involved with Garland Favorito back in 2000 on election night when I noticed that we had a lot of things that were going wrong that just didn't seem to make sense. So we dove into this stuff. Me and Kevin Moncla and Joe Rossi and Narelle Brigden and Mad Liberals and a bunch of other folks piled onto this into this, and we started trying to figure out what happened because there was no investigation that was happening. Most recently, on December 9th, the Georgia State Election Board had a meeting where they called up one of the cases that I had put in back in March of 2022, and it had to do with the fact that we had tabulator tapes for all of the early voting in Fulton County, which was 315,000 votes. None of those tabulator tapes were signed, in accordance with Georgia rules and Georgia law. Now, that's not to say that the votes are invalid, but the thing that I asked for was it was time to hold Fulton County responsible for procedural errors. And the naysayers that are out there that Garland and I and others are, constantly battling will say it was just a procedural error. It's not that big of a deal. And the reality is that if you were watching your favorite football team play and they had in one quarter, they had 15 personal fouls, you would think that there's maybe something wrong with what's going on with the team or the coach or something else. And that's where we are with Fulton County. Fulton County has egregious errors. So to be perfectly clear, there's a lot of people out there that are saying, Trump only lost Georgia by, like just under 12,000 votes. And this 315,000 negates all that. It doesn't. Okay. What it does is it tells us that Fulton County violated procedures. They took memory cards out of advanced voting machines, took them out, broke the seals, broke Georgia law or broke the rules by doing that, took it down took these things down to central processing and printed the tapes out there. You can't do that. All right. So that blew up. And I was kind of taken aback by the fact that there were so many people interested in this thing. But what I can tell you is that we've got a lot more cases that are out there. Me and Kevin Monkla and Joe Rossi and some other folks, we've got a number of other cases that are still outstanding, including falsified transfer forms for both Fulton and Gwinnett, where we have impossible sign-in times. Nobody signed off on the check-in of the ballot, so we've broken chain of custody there. They're reusing tabulators for election day and for advanced voting. We have invalid software that was used. So the state of Georgia contracted, but that a particular version of software be used on the system with the ability for de minimis changes. And in reality, there were over 1,000 lines of code that were changed in the software, making it that's not de minimis anymore. That's a big deal. We also have something really interesting where on election day in Fulton County, we had Fulton County certify that 59,000 people voted. What's really interesting is that there's video out there, and I've got it on my YouTube channel at GA Ballots, where there's a special meeting that happened in Fulton County where there's an update that says as of about 5 p.m., we had 14,152 people that voted on election day. And that number was confirmed 2 more times by other board members who were scratching their heads and saying, that's a ridiculously low number. Can you confirm it? And it was confirmed again and again. Carter Jones, we actually have a screen grab from his phone where he shows at the end of election day in Fulton County, there were 21,843 people that had voted. So that kind of makes sense between 5 p.m., 14,000 and 21,000 at 7 p.m., not 59,000 that Fulton County says. And again, the naysayers are going to say, you can't prove it. And you know what? You're absolutely right. We can't prove it because we still have not seen the ballots. And that's what Garland has been fighting so hard for. And I've been helping support with that. So the biggest question that I frequently hear is what can I do? What can you do is reach out to your politicians, let them know that that our elections are gamed and controlled by crooked politicians, and you hope and pray that the person you're talking to is not in on that game. But the software that's used in these systems have hard-coded passwords that makes it so that if somebody knows the username, which is usually fairly simple to figure out, they can get in with this hard-coded password. If I know that the password is DVS Corp 08 exclamation point, then the bad guys do too. We've even got it on t-shirts, and we're trying to embarrass the Secretary of State of Georgia into changing those things. There's a guy named James Collier. Then 1996, he was like the original Garland Favorito. And he was interviewed in 1996. He had been doing election investigation work going back to 1971. And he concluded that the only way to have free and fair elections is to have human counted hand marked paper ballots. We are echoing that today. It would really be a huge thing if you went to your politicians, whatever state you're in, and tell them we need the same thing. I'm going to share my screen real quickly if I can. Let's see.
1 moment, let me set you up for screen sharing. Okay, go ahead, please.
All right. Can you see Elon Musk on the screen?
Yes, I can. I don't hear the audio. Please stop the share, start the share again, and click on share computer audio.
Got it.
So
Okay.
stop the share. And then when you hit share again, there's a little checkbox that says share computer audio. So you click the
Oh,
share
share
button.
sound. Okay.
There you go. Good.
Easy to hack. It's too easy to add just one line.
Hopefully it'll work.
And it's really difficult to hack paper ballots.
I can hear him now.
I mean, I'm a technologist. I know a lot about computers, and I'm like, the last thing I would do is trust a computer program, because it's just too easy to hack. It's too easy to add just one line, and it's really difficult to hack paper ballots. So, you know, in-person voting with you know, proof of, yeah, with ID, which by.
All right, so there you go. So the smartest and probably wealthiest man on planet Earth and one of the greatest technologists of our time says human counted hand marked paper ballots. So that's where I'm at. I really encourage everyone out there to really get behind that. There's going to be some of the naysayers out there will say, don't do it. You know, you can cheat. You know, that's the way elections were stolen a long time ago. But you know what? 50 years ago, we didn't have high definition cameras everywhere. So that's my bit. I'll open things up for questions if we've got it, or you know, reserve that for later. I know you've got General Flynn coming on in just a moment.
Go ahead and unmute Steve. Just click the unmute button. There we go.
He's just going to get off on, he's on human events. I see him on the right, and Melissa just does. So we'll come up with a couple of things. How about if we run a couple of commercial ads, but let's put this on. We'll talk about this a second until he gets on.
Okay, stand by. Stand by.
I'm standing.
And share screen.
You can put this on over here. We can see it.
Great. Okay, there we go. Stay Awake America National Tour.
Oh, we're going to talk about Ohio Amy, who has the National Stay Awake America Tour. That is going to be happening this weekend, both on Saturday and Sunday. Joe DeBox, my good friend, is having it at the America First Warehouse. These are all the speakers that are going to be on. And we're very happy to promote this because she does a wonderful job. I don't know if she's on our, is she on, do you see Ohio Amy on there?
Stand by.
We got a couple of minutes while we're waiting for General Flynn. If she's not on there, then.
Yeah. Okay, Ohio Amy, go ahead and unmute.
Hello, thank you so much, Steve and Raj. I really appreciate you helping support us and to share the Stay Awake America National Tour. Yes, we're at the America First Warehouse this weekend. It's both days, Saturday and Sunday from 8 to 8, from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Amazing speakers, 17 nationally known speakers. We're delivering truth, but we're giving solutions, just like your call. We've got to unite in 26. We've got to, what I want to say, blitz the 2026 midterms, because everything hinges on that. All of the rhetoric, people that are complaining, things can all come to fruition when we secure the midterms. And that's what's so important about your call, because we've got to legislate the American First policy, and that will clean up the fraud, that will clean up the lies and deceptions that we've already discovered. But then, just like what our tour does, we want to empower people. We want to give people hope and solutions. So our mission is to unite, engage, and activate local action for national impact. That's General Flynn's coined phrase. That's what we need to do. Boots on the ground. We cannot, not one person can do this alone. Trump can't do it alone. He needs our prayers first. He needs our support loud and clear. But then ultimately, he needs our action, local action, national impact. And I just, we are a grassroots movement. We are saying yes to God's call, just like all of you here. We are going across the country by faith and by fumes. So we all know that we're personally, a lot of us are personally funded this. We're doing the same. So any donations, whether it is coming to our events, spreading the word with our flyers, telling friends and family. This is our 5th city. Last year we got 4. We had 4 Stay Awake America tours, went to 4 different cities, and we're going to go strong this 2026, because it is so important. We have to blitz the midterms like our life depends on it, because it truly does. We know if we do not hold the majority in the U.S. Senate or the U.S. House of Representatives, they're going to attack. They're going to impeach Trump, and they're going to go after all of us. We're domestic terrorists. So we have to put on the full armor of God. We got to do everything legally and lawfully, but we have to participate. It's no longer a spectator sport. Everybody has passions, talents, and purpose that are divinely set. So picking up the phone call, spreading things on social media, actually getting to be, like the gentleman said, to be election workers. We've got to get in this fight, and we've got to have the sense of urgency, like we did with voting Trump into office for the midterms. So thank you very much. You can
Thank you
go
very
for
much, Amy.
details.
Please, the website is on the chat. Please make sure you go to the chat. Stay Awake America. Please get your tickets. Thank you very much, Amy. So while we're waiting for General Flynn to
Is he on there? Is he on?
stand by, checking. No, Patricia Flynn is on,
Okay,
but not General Flynn. So while we're waiting for General Flynn,
Just put on Dr. Corsi. He's ready to go on, and I'll try to get a hold of Flynn and get him on next.
copy that. Okay, Dr. Corsi, go ahead and unmute.
Okay, I should be unmuted now.
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead, sir.
Well, the announcements I want to make today, and with our website, gods5stones.com, there's 2 things really important developing, and it's all in the plan we have been discussing now for months with Donald Trump prepared to issue an executive order requiring proof of citizenship and voter IDs to vote in the 2026 midterm elections. But you're finding almost daily now, coming out of from within the administration, new evidence of voter fraud. So you've seen with the Fulton County in Georgia, where there's something like 315,000 ballots that were allowed to be counted even though they hadn't been certified. You're seeing in Wisconsin, demands on the voter registration files to be cleaned up of non-voters. And so what we're seeing here is that the stolen elections, the work we've done to show that the algorithms allow multiple votes, millions of votes, thousands in each state, to be created of people who are not
citizens, but yet get legitimate state IDs and can be used to mail in ballot fraud. Donald Trump has now got the administration constantly releasing information to get the public aware that election fraud by the Democrats is massive. It's not occasional. It's endemic, and it's systemically built into the rules of how elections are conducted, specifically with regards to mail-in ballot requirements and not requiring voter IDs. This also ties into what you're finding out about the corruption in the Somali communities with the use of welfare money that's being used, for child care. There's no child care going on. The stealing of government money. Stories came out today about George Soros and other billionaires on the left who are pumping money into anti-American NGOs, including for voter fraud. So there's a major public relations campaign going on, engineered by the White House, that is getting the public inundated with the idea that voter fraud is as endemic as welfare fraud and the other kinds of money fraud that we're seeing exposed for the Democratic Party in general. That's number one. Secondly, Trump in the retreat that he was at this week with the Republican GOP emphasized that he wants to get this SAVE Act, S-A-V-E, which will require voter IDs. It was passed in the House, but did not get through the Senate. Trump wants it brought through the Senate again. Going to make a major pressure to get a law passed that will require voter ID. And if that doesn't work, can't get the law passed, then it'll be done by executive order. But if a law can be passed, it'll have a lot more legitimacy and it'll be a lot harder for the states to evade. And additionally, the administration is putting into place the ability to investigate blue states for fraud and other kinds of illegal activity. Governor Newsom was just put under notice that California, and he in particular, are now under criminal investigation. You're seeing Wall in Minnesota also under the same kind of scrutiny. And Mondami is under scrutiny and been told that he will and his people will be investigated for criminal violations if they begin taking away federal rights of New York citizens. So the campaign is unfolding for Donald Trump to gain control of the 2026 midterm elections, even if he has to do it by executive order. And the campaign is a multi-phase campaign of getting the information out in a constant fashion. Every day, more information released about voter fraud. And I see Jefferson Davis is here. Jefferson Davis in Wisconsin has done a major role in this. Jefferson can report on it. I've been working with Wisconsin. Wisconsin has been phenomenal in getting the attention of the Justice Department behind the scenes. And again, the work is not immediately apparent to the public, but the Wisconsin Election Board is under tremendous pressure, and tremendous pressure even to be investigated criminally, which will be next if the states refuse to comply with these new rules coming down. So I'm seeing that this group and the pressure done on, and thank you, Steve, for continuing these, the pressure on voter integrity, it's going to be the front and center issue of 2026, along with exposing and getting rid of the corruption that has become endemic to a Democratic Party that is largely going communist, if not outright treasonous in its resistance to the United States and our laws. Donald Trump knows that voter integrity has to be the theme of 2026, and he made that clear in his speech to the GOP in the retreat held this week. So I'm very positive that things are moving in the right direction, but it's also it's yet a little bit below the surface because it hasn't been explained the way I'm as clearly explaining it now. But I know the people in the White House who have been appointed to conduct this campaign, and it is actively being implemented. So that's the report I wanted to give today.
Well, thank you very much. We're going to wait about three minutes for General Flynn, but in the meantime, I want to let everybody know to stay tuned. Nationally, we have a lot of people on this thing. We are going to have a 9-minute documentary on Tina Peters, which is a horrific situation. It came to me last night from John Goodman, You can reach John Goodman at John Good at 1965 on X. Matt Struck put it together. He's a friend of Tina at Real TT 1776. Ryan, you can reach him at MAGA_Punch Ryan at 1773 TV. Now, you know, each of our election security calls that we have, we dedicate to Tina Peters. Lots going on. We'll have Peter Tickton on next time. We'd like everybody, again, as we always say, to call Governor Jared Polis at 303-866-2471 or email him at governorpolis@state.co.us. Very important. Lots is happening. We probably had 100,000 people call. Thanks to Corsi and Tickton, we got a pardon from the President of the United States. Hopefully he sends the troops in to get her out of there like he did in Venezuela. But we'll have
And
to.
Steve, just to let you know, General Flynn is in queue. He's on call right now.
And one last thing, if I could, Steve, add is, you know, the Supreme Court this past week also went back to the Orville Faubus case and Jack Kennedy sending in the troops during the segregation movement to say that, you know, the president has the authority to send in the Marines. He might not have the authority to send in the National Guard, but he has the authority to send in the Marines. And states that don't want to comply with what's coming down for voter integrity rules, either for the SAFE Act or executive order, Donald Trump now has the authority to go into those states and take over the election.
Okay, very good. Next on, we're going to have General Michael Flynn, 33 years in the Army, national security expert in just about everything. He is on every program under the sun. We're so happy to have him on and him honoring us to come on because everybody wants him. I get many, many calls to have him speak at every event. I wish he could clone himself and get us about 100 of him. So my good friend, General Flynn, thank you so much for coming on, and come on down, unmute him.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Steve. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up.
Everything
yeah,
is-
perfect. Beautiful.
You look good, too. You look
wearing,
good.
thank you. Yeah, you're wearing the wrong hat, but that's okay. Listen,
Hey,
let me just put a couple of comments here. First, I caught like the last 5 minutes of Jerome Corsi's dialogue there. I mean, just right on the money. And going forward for the elections, which is really, Steve, you brought together a body of people really to focus on elections. And, you know, and I use that phrase, local action, national impact, you know, the precinct strategy, all this kind of stuff at the local level, which is still really where the proverbial rubber meets the road in this country for the protection of our constitutional and our way of life. It's got to be done by every single citizen. And I think that's one of the things that you have been able to champion. I do think that for the 2026 election, and I do know things that have been put in front of the president on the elections and what we learned from the 2020 election. So I have a lot more insight, I guess, that the president is probably going to have to make, as Jerome was highlighting there, he's probably going to have to make some national security level decisions, right? It's probably going to be on the order of maybe even a national emergency to run, if we're going to run our federal elections using very basic capabilities, you know, no mail-in ballots, not voter ID, all the kinds of things that we now have learned and we've said will only result in a fair outcome. He's probably not going to get the support. He may not even get the support of states run by Republicans. I mean, the state of Mississippi just a couple of months ago just invested another $200 million in machines. So, and we know for a fact, I'm not, you know, there's not conspiratorial theory BS any longer. We know for a fact, because we now learned it, and President Trump is aware that the Chinese, in coordination with the Venezuelans and other countries, but specifically the Chinese, were directly involved in fraudulent behavior to undermine the 2020 election. We know that for a fact. That information will come out in greater receipts here in the near future. Now, let me just shift a little bit to talk about something I think is vitally important for the audience that you have brought together. And I call these people that are on here, and I'm only looking at, 7 or 8. I went through while Jerome was talking, I went through to kind of see who was on. But the body of people that you have brought together, I see all of us as a body of leaders in some form or fashion. Leaders in our communities, leaders in different movements, leaders at state level, people that have been involved in a lot of different things over the years to try to stand up and do the right thing for our country. So I think that this forum, Steve, is going to be one of the most important forums as we go forward to when an emergency occurs or when things begin to happen, where do I go to find out what the heck is going on? The reason why I'm running late here, because I just did half of Jack Posovic's show because of the breaking news up in Minneapolis. And of course, the breaking news in the North Atlantic with the seizure of the Russian vessel. For those that don't know, the woman up in Minneapolis that tried to run over an ICE official, she was shot, and now it's being reported that she has in fact died. The location where this incident occurred is about a block and a half, 2 blocks from where the Floyd Brown incident occurred in Minneapolis. So remember, the Floyd Brown incident resulted in the summer of 2020 riots, where I think it was 34 law enforcement officers were murdered. Maybe I think it was somewhere between 15 and $20 billion of damage done to property. So I don't know what the result is going to be, but the mayor of Minneapolis put out a statement the other day that essentially was inciting people. So I'm telling you guys this. We all saw what just happened in Venezuela. Venezuela is not moving in the direction just yet. I mean, let's pray that the administration's plan for post Maduro is structured and organized and well executed, but nothing ever goes according to plan. The seizure of the Russian flag vessel in the North Atlantic, well, we have to look at Russia as a great power, as a nuclear power, as a nation that will have a response. Elements in the Duma are already calling for a response. Okay, so the Duma is the Russian version of our Congress. So there is a lot at stake here. And what we need, and Steve, you have brought this body together, because now, we now talk typically about elections, but there may be times where we bring people together because the spider web effect of what you have created is extraordinary, is immense, is so broad, and we can put tentacles out there all over this country. And I know that there's even people that come into here from overseas. I did a show earlier today after the seizure of the vessel with Italy, because there's a lot of people that are upset about the direction that France, Germany, and Great Britain, the United Kingdom, their presidents, Macron and Sturms today, last 24 hours said, we're basically going to send troops to Ukraine, as part of some ceasefire or part of some peace agreement. Well, the seizure of a Russian vessel could actually impact the outcome of any kind of peace talks with Putin, and it could also affect what's going on in Venezuela. So things matter. They connect. Dots connect. It's not just what we're trying to do here to fix our elections and have a fair election, so we can kind of go, okay, best person wins. Fair election, better ideas. We are now in a place where we have a different set of ideologies in this country. And the communist ideology, the Islamist ideology that has partnered together is a very radical set of ideas. And for now, they're working together. They have not always worked together in the past against essentially capitalism and constitutionalism, and to a degree nationalism, right? With nationalism is the belief in your nation. It's not like the left will name call everybody that says I'm a nationalist that now you're a Nazi, right? You're a fascist. No, that's a form of socialism. So, without getting academic here about, all of these kinds of ideologies and the framework that we are involved in, we are facing a time in this country that our country is at risk. It is at risk. And, I know that there's a lot of people on here that have kids, grandkids. I have both those. and I've heard today from a couple of other people from overseas that are concerned. And what we need though is because we have a very difficult time trusting our media. Our media is not getting the word out. So your ability, Steve, to bring the right people in to say what they believe with some receipts, with some pedigree, some levels and years of experience to be able to talk about different issues that we are involved in today. That matters, because when we are in an emergency situation here in this country, which is always, I think that situation in Minneapolis is a tinderbox right now, and we're going to see what happens overnight. What do the George Soroses of the world, as the president, and I think Jerry talked about it at the end there, the funneling of money from overseas into our election systems. Well, it's not just that, it's the funneling of money into all of these negative behaviors that are occurring on the streets of America to basically undermine our constitutional rights and principles and values. So when it's time, it's not just this routine thing that you have set up, which is really exceptional. And in the military, we use a phrase, and it's very important for everybody to understand: the best units do the routine things routinely. The best people do the routine things routinely. The best athletes do the routine things routinely, meaning that they do the basics really well. You have created an organization here to do this really well. We get the word out. We are able to, ready, break, and we move off to our own little sub networks to get the word out and get people engaged and get the American people, out on the streets into the things that we need to be able to do. That's what I want this forum to be prepared to do, because we're always going to talk about elections. We're always going to talk about, the kinds of things that are going on, the issues with Tina Peters. I'll throw that in. I think that's a great thing that you have been doing. You've been a big champion for her. But we have to be prepared to get the word out in a different way, not just through audiences listening to a war room or one of these podcasters out there. But this organization that I'm speaking to right now, I see it as a grassroots organization that is nationwide, has a large audience, it certainly is international, and has an ability to bring people in, and the right type of people, and get the word out on specific issues. And so I'll come to a wrap here, Steve, and just say thank you for everything that you're doing. Appreciate your patience with me and getting me back on. I will do that as much as I can. And I want you to know that to the people that are on here, I want you to know, don't discount your importance when you hit end, when you hit leave this group. Don't discount your importance out into the networks that you have, the email groups, the text groups, your own audiences and your own communities. We have got to keep getting the word out, and it worked getting us into 2024. It will work getting us into 2026. The president of the United States knows it. Anybody that listened to his diatribe yesterday to the GOP convention there that they had, where he spoke, basically he was telling them, guys and gals, get your act together, because we are going to go into 2026. And I think the number, Steve, you might know it, but it's around 52 or 54 members of the Congress that are retiring. And we just lost two, one to I guess a heart attack, the other to an terrible accident. So we're now down to a majority of two in the House. So this is not like, hey, we can pat ourselves on the back and we're doing great. And frankly, the Congress, the House and the Senate, they're still, to me, they're pushing back on President Trump's agenda too much. And to include even confirming a lot of the people that are still waiting to be confirmed for really critical jobs, ambassadors and other undersecretaries and assistant secretary positions throughout our government. So we've got to keep fighting. We've got to keep organizing. We've got to keep talking, and we've got to keep doing more important. So thanks very much, Steve.
I want to ask you a couple of questions and give you some information. Number one, you don't realize what you did to help us. You gave us maybe 500 podcasters. And a lot of those podcasters are restreaming this today. Over 100 are restreaming today. Many of them have not responded. So I'm going to talk to you on the side because you want to spread this. I want to spread this. And there's two things we got to do. One is get more podcasters. This is on OBBM Network. This is on the War Room, on Getter, Stern American, Lindell TV, on and on and on. So this, and you asked why this is going to 58 countries. Dan Schmaliglio, one of my guys who's a podcaster, has a huge audience out of the country. The last one he had 25 people from China on it. So we're getting this out all over. Now, one of the most important things on our last Zoom meeting, which was the biggest one we ever had a few weeks ago before the new year, Steve Bannon came on. And I asked him a question, which I want to ask you because I've asked many, many people this, and you can understand how important this is. The most important thing I think that can happen, we need somebody up in the Trump campaign that will actually talk to the grassroots people, because at this point, we have no knowledge of our 200,000 people, because the Republican Party, who the heads are, have not brought any information down. The Democrats stole our precinct strategy. They got a big thing out going to 100,000 people, and nobody is responding. So we need somebody that I could talk to, or Cleta Mitchell, or whoever, or a group of us can talk to the Trump campaign to have him tell us what to do, because that's so important. So we do have tons and tons of people on, and I want to thank you for your help, and any podcaster that you know that could stream this. Now, Steve Bannon is the biggest help. Stephen K. Bannon has helped us, gets me on to promote this. He puts this on the War Room. He puts this on Getter. That's how important this is, because you said, look at how many people this is going to. So when you come out with a message, you're talking to 7 million people. So if we could talk to 20 million people, that's even better. So whatever help you can give us going forward, I'll talk to you.
Yeah. So let me respond real quick, because I know you got other people and other things going on. But so number one, 100%. We recently had a media summit in Washington, D.C. that I invited a bunch of podcasters to, and wanted to talk about international and U.S. And they represented in that room, it was about 200 people that showed up. They represented an audience of about 250 to 300 million people. And let me tell you that even if we don't get somebody in Washington, D.C., even if we don't get somebody on the campaign team, but I think we can, we must be the ones that drive the message. It is our message. It is not, it's in coordination, I hope, with the direction that President Trump wants us to head as our duly elected leader. And he's messaging every single day what we need to be doing. So we can take some of that. But I think what we have to do is to flip it on its head, Steve, is we have to drive. We have to drive. That means wherever we are, whoever we're with, we've got to drive that. I will talk with the affiliates, I call them, the podcasters, and see what more we can do. One of the things that I do believe, and Steve Bannon talks about these, the Committee of Correspondence. I call it the Loyal Nine for anybody that wants to go study the Loyal Nine. They turned into the Sons of Liberty. They were the original Sons of Liberty, the Loyal Nine. People like Adams and Paul Revere were members, and they used to meet before they get into a brawl with the British. And part of it was because they were upset with everything going on, and they didn't like the direction that things were heading. And so they just as the Committee of Correspondence formed, and I think that we're going to probably be doing that. What does that mean? One of the things could be maybe we do through these giant audiences that we do have, that we start creating our own talking points. We start creating the policy things that we want to see, because that's what our government is supposed to be based upon. It's not just our representatives that we duly elect and put into office. It's also, this is a country based on the voices of the individual, citizens. So, and last thing is if I hope that the people that the Chinese that are listening, I hope that they're pro-America, because if they're not and they're trying to figure out what we're going to do, don't worry about what we're going to do, because they never follow our own goddamn doctrine anyways. We're going to do things, we're going to do whatever it is that we want. And I need them to be prepared that that we are a nation that is not about to give up our rights. I mean, and so God help anybody that tries to punch the Americans, the United States of America in the nose, because when it does come time for screwing around with our family, so to speak, metaphorically, our nation will stand up and do the right thing. And that's why your audience, your organizational abilities to be able to bring this together, Steve, has really been extraordinary. And thanks for allowing me to be part of it.
Well, let me salute you, General, because you are one of a kind.
Thanks,
Thank you
Steve.
very much. We love you, and we will get to you soon.
God bless. See you, everybody.
Amen. All right, our next guest will be Terry Raposa from California, radio host, friend of the show. I could go on and on, but we're short of time. Is he on there, Raj?
I'm here.
All right. Good looking guy.
He could see through a lie like an old screen door. Taught me how to hunt and how to love the Lord. Carried a Bible in a 44. They just don't make them like that no more. General Flynn is 1,000,000,000% right. What we're overlooking here is the most important gift God's given us. Remember, we have God-given rights, not constitutional rights. They come from God. The most important gift we have is children. So I want to talk briefly to the people in California. Do you realize the laws that your kids are subject to when they go to public school? I'm going to read you a few, and these are laws. These aren't policies or mandates or suggestions. These are laws. 1999 Assembly Bill 537 permits teachers and students to openly proclaim and display their homosexuality, bisexuality, and transsexuality. That's a law. 2003 Senate Bill 71, new sexual standards, teaches children in grades 5 through 12 that any consensual sexual behavior is safe as long as you protect yourself with a condom. Teaches that homosexuality and bisexuality and transsexuality are normal. 2007, almost 20 years ago, AB 394 promotes transsexuality, bisexuality, and homosexuality, indoctrination of students, parents, and teachers via anti-harassment. Remember, we were all hearing about bullying? Materials including all sexual lifestyles being positively portrayed to students from kindergarten, 5 years old, to 12. 2007, Senate Bill 82 creates morality-free zones in public schools, pre-kindergarten, and public universities. Now we get into some really juicy ones here. 2011, Senate Bill 48 mandates that children in grades K through 12 in all instruction in social sciences admire the roles and contributions of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender Americans. California public schools must implement the requirements through supplemental materials, i.e. homosexual biographies, classroom discussions, essays, and other homework on outside speakers such as drag queen story time. That's your school system. Those are laws. No executive order can take those away, only a referendum, only a vote of the people. Here's one that probably is the most, this one probably is the most important for right now. 2007, Senate Bill 777 prohibits all school instruction from promoting a discriminatory bias against homosexuality, bisexuality, and transsexuality to students as young as 5 years old. Children are to be taught that gender is a matter of choice. Remember how Joe can be Josephine now and go take a shower with your granddaughter? That's what's going on here. And here's the one that sealed it. Assembly Bill 1266, done in 2013. Requires all K through 12 public schools to permit biological boys and girls restrooms, showers, clubs, and sports teams, and biological girls and boys restrooms, showers, clubs, and sports teams. The right to violate these sexual boundaries is based solely on the self-declaration of a different gender identity. A student shall be permitted to participate in sex-segregated school programs and activities including athletic teams and competitions, and use the facilities consistent with his or her gender identity, irrespective of the gender listed on the student's records. And we're talking about voter integrity, which we should. Now, what has this got to do with it? It's got to do with the fact that California is so heavily Democrat in their assembly and in their Senate that there really isn't a lot we can do with it. I was on a call on Monday night and we talked about, and there was a couple of people who were running for governor on that call. And Kay Nieder had it on our Zoom call. We talked about what was going on basically in California and how in the world we can fix that. How do we fix the public school? Let's go to a solution. How about each thing we talk about, we go to a solution. The solution for fixing the schools in California is to pull your kids out. You can go to publicschoolexit.com. Dran Reese, wonderful lady. Publicschoolexit.com. People say, well, what about the single moms? This organization helps them. Publicschoolexit.com, and I will put that in the chat room. The other thing we have to look at is that with the Democrat majority, I love what Dr. Corsi said. Do you really think that Newsom's going to comply? I don't care. The executive order doesn't have jurisdiction over law in California. I'll say that again. The president executive orders doesn't have jurisdiction over law in California. If the president wanted to change the laws I just read you, he can't. Do we want him to? Hell yeah. Do we love the president? Hell yeah. But let's get down to reality, what we can really do. Get your school kids out. Now, there was a discussion that General Flynn was talking about. A good friend of mine, his name was Congressman Doug LaMalfa, a very good friend. And we'd known each other forever. I knew him since before he ran for assembly in the state of California. He passed away 2 days ago. He was fighting for the kids. He was fighting in Congress. And to go to what we're talking about here, which is voter integrity, he also was fighting in Congress so Congress would enact Article 1, Section 4 of the United States Constitution, where in fact Congress does have the power, as I think somebody mentioned, might have been Dr. Corsi, does have the power to eliminate machines, give the same day voting, declare it a holiday, the whole thing. And we had Doug LaMalfa, Congressman Doug LaMalfa, on our radio program for an hour. No breaks, no commercials. And we were talking, and I said, well, how come Congress, how come your colleagues in the House of Representatives and in the Senate don't just say, hey, we're getting rid of all this stuff. We got people talking on Zooms. We have people that are spending millions of dollars doing this. We have, frankly, people that are making millions of dollars doing this. Why don't you just do that? And you know what he said? And we have it on the record. I sent the radio show to Steve, and I've sent it to a lot of people on this call. He simply said, we can't get the votes. So I said, are you saying that the Republicans will vote with Congress, or vote in Congress and with the Democrats to keep control and keep these machines, et cetera? He said, yeah, sometimes they do. See, the fight is a lot different. First of all, we got to save our kids. First of all, we got to save the kids. Second of all, yeah, it sounds fine and dandy to do this and do that and give them data. They don't really give a damn. They just don't care about the data. They don't care about what you give them. They like it the way it is. Think about this. Why would you change the machines if you got elected? This isn't hard, okay? None of this is rocket science. The understanding of where we have to go, we have to push Congress and push our state legislature. We have to go after them. How do we do it? We don't comply. In fact, we don't submit. You don't comply with maybe a traffic law, but you don't submit to tyranny. See through a lie like an old screen door. Taught me how to hunt, how to love the Lord. Carried a Bible in a 44. They just don't make them like that no more. It's time to stand up. People don't like what you're saying, and they get their underwear in a knot. That's not what dads do. That's not what men do. We got a lot of mama bears, means papa bears out there. I love you all and God bless.
Thank you very much, Terry. Appreciate it. You're a great guy. We appreciate everything you do. Next presenter is Gary Myers. Today, we're happy to have him, along with him producing election rules survey His group is a resource you should really want to know. So come on down, Gary.
Gary, go ahead and unmute. Gary, go ahead and unmute. Gary, go ahead. There
Got
you
it.
go. Great. Go ahead.
Thank you, Steve. It's always a pleasure to speak to patriots. And much, the people in this group are not alone. Much like the reference, they know not what they do. This group is doing so much good, of which you may not be aware. What you are doing goes way, way beyond cleaning up and winning elections in the US. Your work on election integrity is profoundly impacting the entire world, and the world is in fact watching. Steve asked me today to put some context to the great election work of all of you. The United States truly is the shining light on the hill. If we fall as a democracy, our Constitution will fall, as will our Bill of Rights. The rule of law will all die, and with it, the light of Western civilization as we know it. To put my company into context, in 1982, the Myers Report started as a nationally syndicated newspaper column, which appeared in papers from Maine to Hawaii, from Alaska to Barbados, and in nearly every major city in the US. Along the way, we established a collection of experts with hands-on, real work expertise in their areas. We have no theoretical academics in the group at all. We now have experts in over 29 countries, with expertise on another 20 or so more countries. A good number of the election integrity community people are among our members. It is this group that produced our national and international elections rules survey, which has been seen and looked at by people in over 20 states and is making an impact domestically. It is this group that in late 2024 made 177 forecasts on the economy, election results, and geopolitical events to occur in 2025 and 2026. Of the 161 measurable forecasts so far, the group has an accuracy rate of 93.2%, which is verified by dozens of quality people, including members, again, of the election integrity community, and is posted on the internet. The accuracy is very real because it was put together by more than 24 experts from around the world, including people like some of those here. As for the context of your work, it can be seen in the UK, where Keir Starmer has canceled 63 municipal elections scheduled for 2026 and are now moved to 2027. For a significant number of these communities, this is the second year in a row where the UK's prime minister canceled elections. Can you imagine if President Trump did this, if he tried it? Wouldn't work. The UK just took away a citizen's right to a trial by jury of his peers if the crime would carry a penalty of 3 years or less in prison. In the UK, you can get arrested for things which you post online, with over 12,000 people getting arrested in 2023. In the UK, you can be arrested for what you are thinking. In separate incidents, Isabel Von Spruce, Adam Smith Connor, and Rosa Laylor are among the people who were arrested separately for silently praying near abortion clinics. They themselves had no signs, no identification. They were silently standing. They were arrested only when a policeman asked them what they were silently praying about. They were arrested for what they were thinking. By the way, we do have a contingent of our people at the London School of Economics, which keeps us posted on what's happening in the UK. There are other countries with attacks on free speech as well, including Canada, Australia, Germany, and various other EU nations, and now they're rebelling in Iran. Most of these countries are having demonstrations based upon what we are doing here in election integrity, on Charlie Kirk and his movement, and the election and actions of President Donald Trump. The evil is out there, but so are the good works. In the end, election integrity in the United States is the backbone of freedom in the world and the preservation of Western civilization. Last Sunday, we had a roundtable in our group on Venezuela and what was unfolding. Our panel included a Mexican-American investment firm owner with offices in Mexico and 9 South American countries. He had his ear to the ground. A military veteran and now contractor who deals in psyops and counterinsurgency, a former diplomat for 4 presidents, a military intelligence expert, and a 4-term congressman and we were dealing with what was going on and what it meant. They gave us the real-time context. The U.S. action in Venezuela actually began in March of 2020, more than 5 years ago. It was then that the U.S. Department of Justice for the Southern District of New York issued an indictment for Nicolas Maduro and his wife on charges of narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy, and possession and use of machine guns and other destructive devices. Remember, Maduro was not an elected president of Venezuela. International bodies and multiple nations, even left-leaning countries such as Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico, all said Maduro lost and recognized his opponent, Edmundo Gonzalez, as the victor. Maduro, because of his ties to the drug cartel, seized power. Maduro immediately issued an arrest warrant for Gonzalez, who then fled to Spain in September of 2024 seeking asylum. Maduro, as a faux head of state, continued his illegal activities against the U.S. as laid out in the indictments. Because it was a law enforcement action, and because the U.S. Marshals believed that their safety was at risk, and because Maduro clearly was deemed a flight risk, a surgical strike was executed by the U.S. Marshal Service with the assistance of other U.S. agencies and services. It was not a military operation in the classic sense. It was law enforcement. It was not an invasion. It was like the Operation Just Cause, which was launched in December of 1989, when Panamanian dictator Manuel Noriega was removed for pretty much the same reasons. There are those who would say that we did wrong and that Maduro should be freed. Here's where I disagree, and I think you would agree as well. You can only consider that we may not have done right if you first disregard the rule of law, and then you completely disregard the will of the people of Venezuela. We have collected videos, which we're not going to be able to show today, which show Venezuelans' reactions in their country, in the US, Spain, Chile, Peru, and elsewhere. These people are thrilled. They're glad that he's gone and they don't want him back. The arrest of Nicolas Maduro was not the seizing of a head of state. Rather, it was the capture of a notorious, vicious criminal who is now being brought in to face justice. This is relevant because of your work. Without the election integrity efforts, there is no election of Donald Trump in 2024. There would be no freeing of the Venezuelan people. There would be no closing of our borders. The demonstrations that are occurring in the UK, which to a great deal are inspired by what's happening here, the demonstrations there would be going nowhere. There would be no demonstrations in places like Bulgaria, which is now demonstrating for their freedoms and against their government corruption. And certainly the people of Iran might not be rebelling, and they certainly would not be asking for President Trump's help. In addition, half a dozen wars would still be raging. The Somali fraud scandals in Minnesota, Ohio, and Maine and other states would still be going on. Now, here's an interesting outlier. The West Cape region of South Africa is seeking to leave South Africa. And because of what happened in part in Venezuela, they are now looking at the possibility of becoming a protectorate of the US like Guam. And the list goes on and on. It may not seem like it at first blush, but the work of people like Steve Bannon, Steve Bannon, Steve Stern, Mike Flynn, and people like who are on this call is actually saving the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We just got some text from Ray Furzer from England. Want to thank Tina Celine my good friend from California who texted me and said this was the best election security call we have. We try to make them better each time. And we're moving on to our next guest, who will be talking a little about precinct strategy, which I'll be on later this week on Steve Bannon talking about this, because the Democrats have stole Dan Schultz's precinct strategy and are using it. And that's why I wanted to speak to President Trump, to be able to get him to talk about precinct strategy, which he endorsed, and try to get more people involved. We have 400,000 slots, 200,000 people involved. We need 400,000 people involved. We are going to lose the 2026 election unless people step up. The Democrats are registering people left and right. The Republicans seem to be asleep right now. And how do I know that? Because I talk to a lot of people all over the country on a continual basis. Our next guest, who is Jonathan Brent, who is a contributor on precinct strategy and a founder of Unwoke.academy. He works round the clock on the precinct strategy with Dan Schultz. We want to thank him very much for coming on today. Jonathan?
Happy to be back on. Thanks for having me, Steve. Yeah, if you recognize my voice, it may be because for the past 2.5 years, Dan Schultz and I have been talking precinct strategy on the platform X. I am going to break one of my cardinal rules. I made some notes of things that I wanted to cover just to quickly hit the high notes on precinct strategy and the importance. Steve, thank you, by the way, you stole a couple of my bullet points. But I'm actually going to break with my protocol and read a couple of the comments that have been showing up in this Zoom. I'm going to call out a few specifically. I'm reading the conversation. Keep it up, by the way. It's a great conversation. I'm in Palm Beach County. President Trump is surrounded by rhinos. We are going to lose District 87. Somebody else posted, the RNC is silent on election integrity because the RPOF here in Florida. Somebody wrote, the RNC and DNC both work for the same bosses. There are an array of different comments here that are in the same line, and I will post those on my follow-up Substack and posts pursuant to this. I'm going to ask each and every one of those people, are you a voting member of the Republican Party? Because if you're not, you need to become one. That's what precinct strategy is. And I'm going to switch back to my notes just to hit a couple of high notes and emphasize the importance. The precinct strategy, as Steve pointed out, was endorsed by President Trump in 2023. It was February of 2023. Unfortunately, since then, he's been fairly mute on the subject. I'd love to get him back to talking about it because it's fundamental. It's the way that we win. If you're at all like me, you recognize that we are in a spiritual battle. But even if you don't, you're going to recognize, or I'm sure that you'll agree, that we are in a political war. We can't win a political war if we don't have boot soldiers, if we don't have people on the ground. We need to build an army. We need to give President Trump a party. And by precinct strategy, which is basically, it's just basic civics. It's going back to what works in American government. And oddly enough, it seems to me that everyone except patriotic Americans seems to understand civics and how our system of government works. What's with all these different outside enemy agents coming into the United States and doing government better than we do? Well, precinct strategy brings us back to that. Dan Schultz started it as a website and a concept about 16 years ago, but he'll be quick to point out that it's not some new invention. He just put a name to basic civics. It's getting involved at the local level to reclaim our government from within. And I'm just going to high level hit the high notes by saying the following. We don't have time to build another party. So if that's somewhere in your mind, thinking about a MAGA party or MAHA or Patriot Party, I think even Elon Musk quickly gave up on that, recognizing it's going to take 20 plus years to build a legitimate political party when we have one that's readily available. We have a Republican Party that right now is at about half strength. And of the people that are in the party, about half of them are some form of tepid, squishy milquetoast, uniparty, rhino, whatever you want to call them. They're ineffective. That is ripe for the picking. If we can get the right people into those positions, we can overrun the rhinos within the Republican Party and give an actual party to Donald Trump. That clears the path for everything that we're talking about today. When people are frustrated because they're taking this evidence to their elected representatives and their representatives shrug and say, well, we don't have the votes. And I'm referencing the comments made about California. How do you get the votes? Precinct strategy. Precinct strategy is the method and technique that will put good America First constitutional conservatives throughout the Republican Party, build that base, and then do a multitude of different things. We control endorsements then, which is gold for elected officials. We then choose who gets into office, and once somebody is in office, we can hold them accountable. We replace them by precinct strategy and controlling the vote within the Republican Party. When people talk about primaries, and that comes up all the time, let's primary that person. And every time I see that posted online, I ask the question, how? How do you plan on primarying? If your local Republican Party and your state Republican Party are overrun by rhinos, if they control the endorsements, they're going to control the primary elections. They will get their milquetoast, uniparty, squishy, their swampy back into office. But when we take over with precinct strategy and control the Republican Party, giving voice and vote back to we the people, we then control the endorsements. Then we get people in office who make the right choices on things like election integrity. Precinct Strategy is a website. It's precinctstrategy.com. If you happen to be in Ohio, two things. The first is Ohio has a separate dedicated website. It's ohioprecinctstrategy.org. The second thing to know in Ohio, or anybody who cares about the United States, is we are battling in Ohio for General Flynn endorsed Marcel Sturbich for Secretary of State. Please do what you can to get the word out about Marcel Sturbich. General Flynn met with and has personally endorsed Marcel Sturbich, including a bunch of others. He is an outsider trying to make a break in, and he has sworn to election integrity. He's actually worked on it in the state of Ohio, passing a number of bills encouraging election integrity. He's a good friend of mine. Please do follow Marcel Sturbich wherever you are and help get the word out. All of this fits together, and all of it gets done when and if we successfully implement precinct strategy. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. You appreciate it. As you know, we support precinct strategy. I worked 4 years with you and Dan. Going to get we got a few minutes. I want to talk about a couple of different things. First, anybody has any suggestions? Raj, if you're there, put this up on the screen. Go to stern1054@gmail.com.
Yeah,
if you
it's
have
up.
if you have a podcast that you want to share with us, please do that. Want to thank Ann Vandersteel, who's streaming this, has about 2,000 people watching. Our next election security call is going to be a huge one, somewhere at the end of January. Jovan Pulitzer is going to do an hour training program. It'll probably last from 1 o'clock to 4. We'll let you know as soon as we can. March the 2nd at Trump International, we're going to have a Broward Republican executive fundraiser, a golf tournament, a election security call like we did last year. We're hoping to get 20 million people on it. We will tell you later who will be co-hosting with me along with Raj. Also, there'll be a big speaking event. Anybody that wants to attend, they can send me an email, stern1054@gmail.com, and we'll bring on our next person, Jefferson Davis, spokesman for election integrity for Wisconsin in an ad hoc committee. Jefferson, you want to come down?
Go and unmute, sir. Jefferson, go and unmute. There you go. Thank you.
Great. Everyone can hear okay?
Yes, sir.
We can.
Great. Hey, Steve, thank you so much. I feel like this is a reunion. Dr. Corsi's on here, General Flynn, Ken Cuccinelli, Garland Faber. I mean, all of these people I've met and know, and it's good to be in the same venue, and thank you for your leadership in getting this done. Steve, when you called before Christmas and said, hey, we'd like to have you on, give us an update what's going on in Wisconsin. For everyone watching today, in Wisconsin with the election integrity support group, what we do is we divide things into 5 areas: legal, financial, administration, The other two escape me right now. Oh, legislative and data. And so when we look at those 5 moving parts of election integrity, and many of your guests today have spoken about one or more of those, what I wanted to do is give everyone a snippet today of where we are in Wisconsin and why we think it's so critical for the entire United States of America. I'm going to focus on data and legal in this context. We have been working at the direction of Dr. Corsi and some other people whose names are going to remain confidential for obvious reasons since April of 2025. Because Dr. Corsi and some other national election integrity folks looked at Wisconsin's Supreme Court race and they said there's absolutely no way, this is anecdotally, there's absolutely no way that Judge Brad Schimmel lost that race by nearly 300,000 ballots when he outperformed the race 2 years earlier by 300,000. Where did the Democrats come up with all of these extra ballots? So what we did at the direction of Dr. Corsi and others is we assembled a team. And here's what I can report today. We have been working very closely with various federal agencies in the position of authority to get us where we are today in this context. Just before Christmas, the state of Wisconsin was given a Christmas gift by Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon. She filed a lawsuit just before Christmas because our state elections director refused over and over and over again to turn over our database. And Harmeet was very kind, so were her assistants, so were the other people in the DOJ department. And they said, if you're not going to turn these over by just before Christmas, then we have no choice but to file a lawsuit, which they did in Western Federal District Court. Wisconsin is divided by 2 federal court districts. And because the elections director is in the western part of Wisconsin, that's why it was filed in Western Federal Court. Steve, we'll keep you updated. This is so fresh. This is so new. We don't even have a schedule for a hearing yet. But when we do, we'll get it to you and you can disseminate that out to the rest of the followers. The 2 remaining things that I want to talk about in the 10 minutes that Steve has asked me to keep my comments limited to is this. The snapshot for Wisconsin, and Wisconsin's not unique in this, but all 50 states should look at this in this context. Harmeet Dillon brought the lawsuit because Title III of HAVA, Help America Vote Act, requires all state elections administrators to remove all ineligible names, and I can send this to you, Steve, from their databases. Well, in Wisconsin, as Dr. Corsi and the other scientists and observers that we know, they don't do that. We have 8.2 million names in our collective database. Let me repeat that. 8.2 million. Wisconsin only has 5.8 million residents from the 2020 census, and that might be skewed because they count non-US citizens in our census. We only have 4.6 eligible voters, 18 or older, but only 3.6 of the 4.6 are registered eligible electors. And yet we have 8.2 million names in our database, and 3.6 are eligible, 4.6 are ineligible, should not be in the database. The state election administrator refuses to remove them, and that's why Harmeet Dillon brought this lawsuit. So when you look at that in that context, it's mind-numbing that this has been allowed to go on here in Wisconsin for many, many years. And whether we tried legislatively, legally in the court system, the assistance of law enforcement, lobbying, and then logistically, what does that look like? So many people have given so much time, so much money, so many resources to get this right in Wisconsin, but we've been met with very little success until President Trump, Dr. Corsi, others, and Harmeet Dillon got involved and said, you got to help Wisconsin. So how did that manifest itself? The 2020 election, and I'll conclude with this, and then what's the solution? The 2020 election was reviewed by the state election administrator, the Speaker of the Assembly, the Legislative Audit Bureau, True the Vote with Catherine Engelbeck and Greg Phillips, Cause of America with Mike Lindell, and other nonprofit organizations. And this is what they found out. We haven't been able to do it for 2024, but the thing that we did for 2024 is found out all 72 counties in Wisconsin, their voter registration 1 month before the election, all 72 counties went up by 9%. And then shortly after the election, they went back down by 9%. You ask any actuarial, any scientist, any data person, and they will tell you that is statistically impossible. It doesn't happen. So what did we learn from 2020? And we better get this right for 2026, or the midterms will be disaster and the Supreme Court race here in Wisconsin will be over. Here's what we found out. In 2020, in a little dinky state like Wisconsin, allegedly 1 million people registered to vote. Half of them online with very little vetting. The other half were mail-ins or same-day voter registration. I'm here to tell you we do not have an extra 1 million people floating around in 2020 during the worst pandemic in the history of the world that said, you know what, we're going to go register to vote. 1 million. Then we found out the race was decided by 20,682 in 2020. We don't believe that's true anecdotally, but with empirical evidence, this is what we've been able to document. And Harmeet, we're working very closely with Harmeet and others to build this case. We found out that on the day of the election, November 3rd of 2020, 46,000 people registered to vote the day of the election, had a ballot processed for them, but did not have statutory required matching evidence. And yet the ballot was processed. 46,000, remember that number. Then we find out that the indefinitely confined here in Wisconsin exploded from 60,000 to 220,000 because the Democrats were telling all the people, hey, get indefinitely confined designated, you automatically get a ballot, no photo ID, you don't have to sign a poll book, we don't challenge your signature, we don't challenge your witness's signature. 220,000 out of 270,000 had a ballot processed for them. Now we're up to 266,000. It gets worse. Then we found out, according to the state elections administrator, the Speaker of the Assembly, Greg and Catherine, and the Legislative Audit Bureau, that we had 234,000 people identified by ERIC, Electronic Registration Information Center, that had moved out of Wisconsin, but had 70,000 ballots processed for those people. We tried to get them removed before the election in 2020, but the Supreme Court said, no, you keep them in there. 70,000. Now we're up to 336,000. It gets worse. Then we had 850,000 absentee ballots put into Mark Zuckerberg's illegal absentee ballot drop boxes. 850,000. Greg and Catherine from True the Vote did a statistical geospatial analysis of just 3 counties because they had a very generous donor here in Wisconsin. They bought the geospatial technology. They found out a minimum of 137,551 of those 850,000 ballots were illegal and deposited by between 20 and 25 people. They were, it was like Atlanta, Georgia all over again. 130.
1 minute,
Yeah.
1 minute.
Thank you. And I'm almost done. Last thing is this. Then we went to the nursing homes and we went to 91 nursing homes and looked at the voting records of 3,301 residents. 3,261 of them had a ballot cast for them. When you put this together, this can, thank God we won 2024 because we made it too big to rig here in Wisconsin. The solution is this. We need prayers and we need Harmeet Dillon and her staff to prosecute these people here in Wisconsin because this is criminal and it cannot continue, or you can kiss 2026 goodbye in Wisconsin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
A few little notes. I got a text here from my good friend Robin Sachs from Maryland. She said, this is such a powerful call. As Trump would say, this call is hot. So, me listening to this and putting all the people together are unbelievable, because we have to thank everybody, because it's hard to get everybody on. I want to tell you something that we're doing in Broward County. Can everybody see this? This is a flag that we're giving out, thousands and thousands of flags with America 250. I don't know if you can see that or not. So,
Yes, we can see it. We can see
and
it.
it tells you where to go to get in touch with the Broward Republican Executive Committee. Chris Marino, our chairman, I'm the vice chair. We have sent out 300,000 emails, texts at a cost of $30,000 to every Republican household that has one Democrat or independent in their household. And we'll continue to do this. Some of the results, we've turned 1,300 Democrats to Republicans, another 1,000 to independents. So it's important that we communicate with every Republican around the globe to let them know here around the United States what we can do. Also, we want to thank everybody. This is our biggest year we had for the flag shirt and OneThrive.com. We don't even have time to put anything out today because we have so many guests. And our next guest, each time that we have this, we try to get a podcaster on because they are the ones that are promoting us, and it's very important. And today we have the host and co-host of the Big Mig and the Crypto Power Hour. And the Big Mig is one of the big people that started with us. And Lance, I've been on the program a couple of times, so it's Lance Miliasio. If I got it right, I apologize. Anyway, Lance, you want to come down and give us a little background? He has so much information, it's unbelievable. He could use 2 hours.
Yeah, I really appreciate, first of all, Steve, I want to thank you for having me on today. And I appreciate everybody being here. Time's the most valuable commodity we have. And of course, we're probably in the fight of our lives. My background, I was on the sideline for a long time. I wasn't political, and I finally couldn't take it any longer. But if I go further back, I worked as a government contractor. So I worked for Halliburton, USA, United Defense, Sabre, G4S, worked for a lot of different institutions, worked with multi-agency task force for this government, other ones, never was in the military here. My background is I was training people in hand-to-hand combat and CQB techniques. That's kind of how it started. And then I had the skill set and I went ahead and started working overseas, spent time in 41 different countries, and kind of worked it from that area. So I saw the corruption firsthand. I've heard a lot of people bring up different topics. And my thing is, I think we're in a fight for our lives. I think there are two parties, traitors and patriots, Ulysses S. Grant. And I want to here have to be ranked with the latter. The truth of the matter is I'm concerned because we're a year in. And I think there's still people in this administration that aren't giving us what we all voted for. I don't know how many other people on this call are angry, because I'm angry. I internalize a lot of it. I try not to do it on air because, of course, I got suspended for a thing called Italy Gate that had to do with the switching of votes electronically. I had good contacts at the Italian Secret Service. I started releasing photos of the individuals that were involved in the election hack over there, and I got suspended by Jack Dorsey over on Twitter. Lots of other places banned our content. They took us off of platforms, deplatformed and otherwise. I've gotten it back. I still feel like suppression is evident. But I think this administration is making a horrendous mistake. I think firsthand, I would tell you this, that they used it against us, fear. J6 was about fear. It was about controlling the narrative. We've seen the corruption. And for the people here in this group, I'm sure you guys are as well read as anybody on the planet. The majority of the public wants to be spoon-fed the material. They only want to be able to pay their mortgages and their car payments, and they don't want to hear the ugly part of this. I have lots of resources all over the globe. I have people in this administration. I get lots of good intel. We do that on the Big Mig Show. We're on Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern Standard. Steve's come on. He knows my position. I'm an old pipe hitter, and somewhat of an intellectual. I try to really do the research so I don't put out false information. And I'm really concerned. I don't know that we need any more proof of election fraud. Let's face it. I mean, I listed some of the most recent stuff just among everything you guys have talked about. And it's interesting because there's so much of it. It's frightening. You know, look, there's a August 2025, a non-citizen alien charged in North Carolina for voting. 2 Pennsylvania residents, September 25, separately charged by federal DOJ for election fraud. October 2025, 7 individuals charged in Pennsylvania with voter registration fraud. October 2025, Oklahoman was indicted for voting twice in the 2024 general election. 2025, Texas Attorney General opens investigation into 33 potential non-citizens. May through June 25, Michigan audit identifies approximately 15 to 16 potential non-citizens. And that's not the worst of it. I mean, we know that the voter rolls are corrupted. They're full of nothing but dead Democrats and everything else. The problem is that, you know, as a contractor, sometimes we made a decision. And I can't say that I was always a good man, because I wasn't. I was an opportunist. And I will tell you this, that sometimes we would take out a target because we knew it would put fear in the community. I worked for Overwatch, if anybody knows the terminology of what an economic jackal is. So there's a book that came out called Economic Hitman. I used to do Overwatch for those people. Those people are there to subvert governments. It's just like the Venezuelan narrative. They're telling the people it was all about narco-terrorism. I know that a lot of it had to do with Smartmatic from my sources. If anybody knows what Smartmatic's, the programming that was created in Venezuela with a bunch of individuals, we covered it on the show today. But it was also about the resources and the money. A lot of people, the news that's coming out right now that they haven't seen, it's the amount of assets that Maduro had. The gold reserves in England, 31 to 40 tons. That's 2 to 4.8 billion in recent estimates. Those have been frozen since 2018 because of the U.S. sanctions. Of course, Bill Barr indicted him. Gold shipped to Switzerland, 113 metric tons. That's another 5.2 billion. Turkey, there's volumes estimated 73 tons, 3 billion. You know, right now, the Bitcoin, the argument they thought he had somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 or $24 million of the Bitcoin. And the story that I'm getting out of DC is it's more like 600,000 to 660,000 Bitcoin. That is at today's numbers. What is that? 67 billion dollars. And I'm sure our government wants to seize it. Now, I'm not saying they're not justified. These are all criminal proceeds, and they're justified in the fact that Maduro is knee deep. But I think this, and listen, I'm a big Trump supporter. I'm a Trump fan. There's many people in there that I think are doing the right work. I love Tom Homan. But I can tell you this, one of the ways we're going to lose the midterm is if we continue to allow people like Pam Bondi to stay in her position. I mean, I've got to tell you, how could you not get an indictment against Letitia James for the criminal activity of her mortgage fraud when the evidence is there? We've got a problem. And this election system is so corrupted that as much as I want to believe that what I love about this group is you guys disseminate the information. I've seen after Steve's calls how so many of you go into overdrive. But I have to tell you that if we don't start instilling some fear, and I call it a uniparty in DC, I don't like either side of the party. I think it's a David Copperfield. It's a sleight of hand. I wish I could believe that the Republicans were good about what they were doing, but I just don't see what we were promised. I voted for transparency, accountability, and consequences. Even the mishandling of the Epstein files is horrendous. Anybody that really knows what's going on with Epstein, that guy never made a legitimate dollar in his lifetime. I have an FBI agent that's way up the food chain that was at every one of the raids. They walked out of there with Israeli intelligence surveillance systems, the cameras, the hard drives, zip drives, printed copies. There are reams of data. I don't know if it's been destroyed, but there were reams of data. There are lots of people, celebrities, high-level political officials that are all guilty. But I can tell you this, and here's my concern, is that all the people here in this audience, I can promise you, if any of you committed election or mortgage fraud, or you decided you were going to do insider trading, they would be at your house in a matter of weeks, throwing in flashbangs, kicking your dogs, scaring your children. And I don't see that. I don't understand why we're not doing what we were told was going to happen. We're a year in and everybody keeps telling me to be patient. I'm not a patient guy. I've always been an action guy my whole life. And I'm not suggesting in any way to take the kind of actions that I've participated in across the globe. But when you have George Soros and Reid Hoffman, Soros, through the Open Society, he owns 64 NGOs that funneled money, hundreds of millions of dollars out of USAID. That was your money that got funneled out of there. How is it that George Soros is still living the life of Riley? He'll probably be at Davos again this year. Alexander Soros, of course, now married to Huma Abedin, another lowlife. How is it that they're still moving around? How is it that Bill Gates can do what he did with COVID and all the other stuff he did, and he's still walking around? What about Mark Zuckerberg? Does anybody believe he didn't commit and defraud every American in this country? Why are they sitting? Why are they being invited to the White House? Donald Trump's talked about the fact that there was going to be accountability, and I'm going to hold his feet to the fire. On our show, we're still talking about Epstein. I'm not going to stop. And I don't have a solution. I wish I did. I wish I could give you the magic bullet. And I think what I love about the people on this listening to you is how positive, and you guys are making your own personal moves, and that's important. But I have to tell you this, fear is a powerful motivator. And I can tell you tomorrow, if Nancy Pelosi got drug out of her place in San Francisco, hog-tied with a hood on her head, I would bet that would put the fear of God in them. I think if Barack Obama got indicted for his treasonous acts and drug out of his home and didn't go back, because again, look what they're even doing, what they did. Even the few indictments we have, and I always joke around on the show that Pam Bondi is the AG of Fox News. I don't need any more interviews. I don't need any more promises. I need action. I want to see these people face the same consequences. Yeah, I want to see these people face the same consequences. So I can tell you this, if there's one thing I would tell everybody to do, don't give them a break online. Go for the jugular. There's nothing, you can't be nice. Listen, when I faced evil and I looked it in the eye, you can't be nice to evil. These people don't deserve nice. They don't deserve patience. They don't deserve, oh, geez, we're going to wait. We're going to have some more popcorn. I'm telling you right now, go after them viciously online because that is what they need. Because at this point, I don't know how we fix this. I hope there is a solution. And Steve, I know this is probably not the message you'd like me to give, but I'm so worried about where we're at. I'm worried for my daughter. I'm worried for the country. I'm a real American, and I only want one thing. I could care less. The Iranians are doing what has to be done. Okay. I'm not saying I agree with Iran about anything, but the people are on the street. There is no doubt that we're in a point that I'm not sure we can vote our way out of this. I hope we can. I hope there's a solution for it. But if we don't get voter ID, if we don't smash the machines and throw them into big shredders, I don't know if we'll ever win another election. And right now, Polymarket says 78% that we lose the midterms. So that's my call to action, as much as I'm sure it wasn't a great message.
It was. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And tell everybody how to come on your show.
Yeah, find us over on Rumble. We're back on YouTube. You can find us on Rumble and Locals, the Big Mig Show. We also have, and that's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard, Monday through Friday. You can find us on all social media, of course, X, True Social. And we also have the #1 crypto show. If you want to learn crypto from the ground up, 7 a.m. Eastern Standard on Wednesdays and Fridays on Rumble also.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Thanks for having me, guys.
We want to also remind everybody we're going to have a special 9-minute video on Tina Peters, which is going to be one of the most important ones you've ever seen. It's at 4:30, 4:35. I want to correct a couple of things. It was Robin Balcom from Washington that sent me that wonderful text. Also, John Goodman is at John Good 1965 at True Social. He's a right-hand guy. I had him at X, so we're sorry about that. Our next presenter will be Meg Denning. She's a volunteer director at True to Vote. You want to unmute her?
Go ahead, Meg.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead.
Perfect. So I just wanted to start off by saying thank you, obviously, for having me here, for having me be able to represent True the Vote. I really believe in what we do as an organization. And obviously, Catherine she knows everything about elections. And so if you've got questions, she's the person to go to. I just did want to preface this really quickly by saying that I'm just kind of going through the chat here and I'm seeing a lot of people really discouraged, and I understand more. I mean, I'm sitting here because I decided I was so discouraged. I was so angry at the state of our nation that I had to do something. And I think that what we need to remember as a nation is that we are founded by God and for God, for the people. And if you go through any story in scripture that has to do anything with deliverance, you're going to see what we're experiencing right now. And there is oftentimes, slavery, there's corruption, but then it comes to the people awakening. and having enough. And then they turn to God. And then God is able to work with the people, and that you see a deliverance like you've never seen before. And I believe that God is doing that right now, again, in our nation. And we have citizens, who are awakened and ready to move. But the number one thing that we hear at True the Vote is, what's the point? Because our representatives, our politicians, no one cares, no one listens to us. But if we don't start somewhere, we're not going to get anywhere else. We're not going to get anywhere by standing in place. A step forward is a step forward. Even if that's a 5-minute phone call, even if that's a post on social media, a respectful one to your representatives, but just getting the word out there. And that's something that we do at True the Vote, above anything else, is citizen engagement. Whether you've got 5 minutes, an hour, or full time to volunteer, we will get you to do something. And so we really need people as a collective to step up and do exactly what everyone here on the call is doing. And you're educating, and you're encouraging everybody, and just giving them ways to get involved, or just to even have that knowledge. Prayer is our most powerful weapon. So if you can't go out and volunteer physically, I had a lady, I prayed with her on the phone. She had a broken back. She was in her 80s, and she said she can't do anything, so she prays. And ma'am, God bless you. That is enough. That is what we need. So moving on to True the Vote, I know I've got a couple of minutes. I did want to say, with everything that's coming out right now, I think that we can all agree that citizen engagement is actually the most powerful thing that we're seeing right now, aside from prayer. And I don't have to get into the details. Everyone's seen Fulton County in Minnesota and everything like that, and what has been coming to light because of citizens getting involved. And so obviously a lot of that is coming to light. We're getting a lot of questions about that right now. People are very discouraged by the election laws that are currently in their state. And I think one of the number one things to realize is that the lawmakers work for us. And for the sake of privacy, I'm not going to name them, but we do know of a group who got involved in bills in a Western state. They stuck their noses right in the middle of about 3 dozen bills, maybe more. And only a handful of those bills ended up getting passed. And of the handful that did get passed, there were still amendments made by this group. So it was a compromise. They weren't, amazing, but the citizen engagement mattered more than anything. And legislation is a very scary thing for a lot of people to get involved in, but we've actually started LegiTrack. Can I share my screen, Raj? Is that something?
Yes, stand by. Go
Yeah,
ahead and try to share it. Go ahead.
2 minutes.
Okay, you're good. We can see your screen.
Okay, great. So legitrack.org, and I'll put this URL in the chat for you guys, but this is the beta version. The full version is going to look more like this. So it's really a snapshot view. And what we have aimed to do is to provide the first pro-liberty legislation and regulations tracking tool. So you can come in and see exactly what is moving in your state and federally. And not only do we work on tracking this election-related legislation, but we also provide all sorts of tools. So you can do anything from just an index here of terms, just to understand what it is that you're reading. We've got, this is the beta version, so I'm just kind of moving around here. Obviously, a bunch of FAQs here. The full version is going to have legislative advocacy training videos. We've got how to read a bill. You can kind of actually see that here. So if you go down to our bill tracker, you've got the different stages of a bill right here. And then you can learn more. You'll see right here that we've sort of rated it as a positive to a negative. So some of them might be neutral. You get a nice summary here. And then you can it takes you straight to the bill text as well. So you can see the entire bill for yourself. The fuller version of it, which we'll be launching probably here in the next week or two, is a a smart language LLM, so you can actually ask questions and get responses that aren't biased. You're going to get the truth no matter what, because it's going to be pulling directly from the source within LegiTrack. And so this is just really an excellent way for people to come in, even if you know nothing about bills, how bills become laws. If you know nothing about that, you can come to LegiTrack, just start with a basic understanding, and then eventually warm your way up into full-on advocacy. So I wanted to end there, and I just love what you guys are doing. Thank you so much for all of this. I don't really know how to stop sharing screen, to be quite honest. So hopefully, Raj, you can just cut me off. But I just wanted to say God bless you guys. Jesus really is moving. We can feel it. We see it. We stand by faith with everything that we do at True the Vote, and we'll never give up. And so thank you for having me, for having us, and for standing with us.
Thank you very much. Our next guest is Linda Sinkowitz, my good friend, fightvoterfraud.org. She would be one of my co-hosts at the election security call March the 2nd at Trump International, which plans to be a huge event. We're going to have some great speakers. We've invited President Trump to play golf. We don't know if he'll do it, but we have invited him. So anybody would like to come, stern1054gmail.com. We'll be glad to get you in there. Linda, come on down.
Go ahead and unmute, Linda. Go ahead and unmute. Click on the.
There we go. Okay. Thank you so much for having me on, Steve and Raj. I really appreciate this. Now, I am actually excited for 2026. We know where the issues are. We know where the problems are. And as even Megan just said, every single person can make a difference. We all can make a difference. So what we have come up with after 7.5 years of looking into all the voter fraud and all the dead people on voter rolls that we're getting off the voter rolls, the double voters that we're quietly sending and getting them removed because nobody really wants to prosecute them. We are launching tomorrow Operation Verify Voters 2026. We will train any organization, any person, anyone who wants to make a difference, where people can make a difference even from their own home. And this is really driving it down to the grassroots. There's people that want to get involved, but say they don't know how, they don't want to be in groups, etc. Well, on your own street, you know when you've seen houses sold, you know people who have passed away in your community. What we want to be able to do is get them to start looking at their own voter rolls and have them removed. We'll be there to hold your hand if you don't know how to challenge, depending upon the states, because there's a whole bunch of different laws in all the different states on that. So if anybody is interested, it'll be up tomorrow because tomorrow was our launch date. But in the meantime, if you're interested, you can just send an email to info@fightvoterfraud.org, and we'll get back to you, and we can set up either one-on-one, we can set up group training. My executive assistant, Tim, he has put together this very quick PowerPoint. He is also always there for anybody who has any questions. Today was our Montana day. He had to go through a number of different people's evidence that they wanted to make sure that they had done things correctly before they brought them forward to law enforcement. So like I said, we want to get groups involved. We want to get individuals involved. And the big thing that we're going to continue to do is to stay positive. We can make a difference. I know all the crap that's out there. Trust me, I've seen it. I've had stuff even said about me and thrown at me that is just absolutely ridiculous. But then you have other people who just keep going. Like I think today was the first time you had Jefferson E. Davis on from Wisconsin. Fabulous information, absolutely fabulous information. There are a lot of you out there working really, really hard. So let's also work smart and work hard too, because I am never one to step away from that. but we want to help. We want to get every single state involved in Operation Verify Voters 2026. Like I said, the launch is tomorrow, where you'll just be able to fill out a form and we'll set up a time where we'll train you or your organization. We're totally flexible. We're based out of Connecticut, and last evening was actually a red letter day for us. Finally, the Department of Justice sued our state of Connecticut, our blue corrupt state of Connecticut, over the voter rolls. And I guess Arizona was also one yesterday that got their letter. So that's 23 states. And if anybody's interested in knowing what the DOJ is actually doing and the misinformation that is out there, you'll hear the left say, oh, they're building voter rolls. You know, they're going to be spying on us. They want all our personal information. No, all they're doing to start with is getting a snapshot in time to see whether or not the laws are being violated. HAVA, the Help America Vote Act, or the NVRA, the National Voter Registration Act. And that's basically what they need to see. And I got to tell you, they already have a lot of information proving that these states are already violating both of those particular laws. Our organization, if you are interested, and we offer this for free, is we will do an analysis on your voter rolls. I have some wonderful people in my organization, and that's all they do. And it is unbelievable the stuff that we have come up with. And we keep track records on everything to show everything that's going on. Not quite as extensive as what Marley Hornick is doing. And I know you guys are going to be really impressed, if you aren't already, on all the stuff that you're going to see this year that she has done. The woman's brilliant. But anyway, so we're here. We're staying positive, and we want to help everyone, whether you're an individual, whether you're a group. Just send us an email or wait till tomorrow and click on the thing and, you know, fill out the form, and we'll get back to you on that. The other part of what I wanted to say before I got off was that we just completed our first year of having our TV show called Sinkowitz. It's on OBBM Network TV, Rumble, and YouTube. And basically, it's once a week, and we talk about all different states every week. And I usually have a guest come on as well. So if any of you would be interested in coming on my show, please send me an email to Linda, Linda, at fightvoterfraud.org. And we're already starting to book for February. So again, info@fightvoterfraud.org if you're interested in our Operation Verify Voters 2026. And thank you so much, Steve and Raj, for having me on. And Steve, I'll see you in person, March 2nd.
You got
Yeah,
it. Thank
down
you
in
very
West
much.
Palm.
Happy New Year. And thank you for all
Thank
your
you.
help. Our
Thank
next
you.
guest is Kelly Walker, founder and editor of Freedom Talk Magazine, co-founder of Parents Demanding Justice. Kelly, come on down.
Steve, thanks for having me on, and great to be here with all these patriots. I've also been communications director for Mike Lindell for the Lindell Offense Fund. And Mike has joined me in Freedom Talk Magazine, which you can find at realfreedomtalk.com. We call it the Journal of Truth and Virtue. And in fact, the January issue, which Mike is about to send out to his list, and we have tens of thousands of more emails that we get sent to through various collaborators. All in all, it goes out to about 3 million email addresses. But I've got an article in this issue, and the title of the issue is The Unbreakable American Spirit, in honor of J6 protesters and others who have paid the price for standing up as citizens. But I have an article on Mike Lindell and Venezuela and voter fraud in Venezuela that I think you'll find very interesting. It's based on some media releases and articles and such
How
that
they
I've
sound.
written for Mike. Go ahead.
And what I found out today is down in
Oh, I think we're catching somebody's mic there.
Go ahead, Kelly.
So just go to realfreedomtalk.com. It's free to subscribe. We have a premium edition, but we're hooking up with people like Emerald Robinson to share content. We've got a lot of writers like Eric Metaxas and others. So I want you to look at that as a resource. What we want to do is not just report the news, but really dig deep and get behind why things are happening, really apply the founding principles of our country so that people can really understand what's going on. And I definitely believe in the power of the people. I've stood up from the time my family had a coffee shop in Tucson, Arizona, and I got arrested for speaking legally at a board of supervisors meeting on TV. That's kind of what launched me. And I had the choice to either hide or fight, and I don't run from a fight. So I've been involved in a lot of things. I do work for the Epic Times, among others, but I've been a staunch advocate for parents who were targeted by the federal government, by the Garland-Monaco DOJ, who designated them as so-called domestic terrorists. And I found out later, and this was a second arrest for speaking out at a school event, that I was target number one of Merrick Garland as a so-called domestic terrorist. So Sam Sorbo and I, Kevin Sorbo's wife, we started Parents Demanding Justice Alliance, I'd say about a year ago, actually a little more than a year ago. We've been up to DC and back several times. And one of your speakers, I believe it was Lance, was talking about how we support President Trump, but a lot of people feel like some in the administration really aren't coming through for us. And Sam and I, Seek Smith, Alex Newman, and several others who are part of the Parents Demanding Justice Alliance, we have talked to Ed Martin, Harmeet Dillon, people at the Department of Education, Vince Haley, many, many others, detailing the plight of these parents, many of whom have suffered on a level with J6, imprisoned, drummed out of jobs. My family's experienced it all. I mean, when you're attacked by the federal government, it's not pretty. Let me tell you. So we've gone and we put together a dossier of targeted parents. Again, you can find all of this on realfreedomtalk.com. There's a Parents Demanding Justice Alliance page. We've been on all the shows, John Solomon, Steve Bannon, Fox, all you name it, we've been on it. And Pam Bondi, I don't like to speak negatively of people, but she had promised these parents a hearing on October 16th so that some of the parents and Sam and I could speak about this problem. And then she canceled the hearing last minute. And I was there in DC at the Senate hearing where she testified as if rescinding the Garland memo designating parents as domestic terrorists solved the whole problem. She claimed that this isn't going on anymore, and it is. In fact, some of these left-wing people in the schools and involved in local governments are emboldened by the lack of action. So they're doubling down on parents. We've had at least 3 parents commit suicide because they've lost hope. If you go and look at the dossier, you'll be amazed. And I'm one of the most extreme cases, but they picked a fighter and someone who loves their country. So we have had these parents, they're reaching the point of frustration. And we're trying to say to President Trump, hey, simple things can be done for these parents. Steve Bannon, many others that you'll see, Sam and I have been on their shows. They've all said, hey, let's help these parents. Let's have a ceremony to honor them. We've drafted up an EO to help these parents and restore them because they were wrongfully attacked by the government simply for speaking out for our children. They've all said it's a win. It's a softball pitch for President Trump, but we think that President Trump isn't understanding that this is hurting him right now. Even Roger Stone went and spoke to President Trump. I have pictures of that meeting in the Oval Office. But we sense that there are some people, we think there are some good people that are fighting for people like this. And believe me, it's not just the parents we're fighting for. But how better to show the public that you care than to take care of our nation's parents who stood up very heroically and took the hits during a very, very difficult time. So out of that, I think a lot of us have had this idea of kind of combining voices as citizens, and as many of our representatives fail us and have, I've heard people, even congressmen, saying that this Congress has achieved almost nothing at a record level. That we've come together and we've created the People's Tribune Council. And this isn't tribune as in a court tribunal. What it's doing is reviving the tradition going back to ancient Rome, when in 494, the citizens walked out of Rome and said, we're being abused by the elite. We don't have any power. And so they pressured the powers that be to appoint tribunes who were officials that would stand up for the people and stand between them and unrestrained power. And it was a very interesting thing, because if you were a tribune, you were required to keep your house open day and night to hear people. So if you want to find out more about that, go to the peoplestribunecouncil.com. And we've written a letter and petition to President Trump, essentially saying that it's time for the people to step forward. We've seen so much abuse. We've seen a government that's out of control, and really from both sides, the uniparty. And there is a case to be made for a lot of promises not happening, things being slow walked. For example, we were told that during the shutdown that the DOJ just didn't have time to do these things, and yet they pardoned George Santos. They did a whole lot of things during that time. And the Senate, of course, to end the shutdown, snuck in this bill where they could have carte blanche to sue the DOJ with no immunity and a minimum of $500,000 per incident. And I've talked to Mike Lindell about this, and I said, look, the entire Congress voted to take that provision out after it was already done. And Lindsey Graham and John Thune killed it. I mean, you have one bill the entire time, or one motion that was unanimous on both sides. And apparently only Lindsey Graham and some others get to sue for, I wish that all we had suffered was having our phone tapped. But we have tribunes that are ready to stand up. I'm one of them. And I created a document it's going to come out in the January issue of Freedom Talk magazine, which we're just going to launch this week. And the powers that we have as citizens, legal powers, things that aren't going to get us in trouble like J6, they're immense. We have more power than we think. And I have long believed that there has to come a point. Let me read you a pertinent quote that's one of my favorites from Samuel Adams. If ever a time should come when vain and aspiring men shall possess the highest seats in government, our country will stand in need of its experienced patriots to prevent its ruin. So I've actually written a pamphlet called Common Sense for the 21st Century, and it's based on Thomas Paine's famous booklet that really precipitated the American Revolution. And again, I'm going to have a link to that in the next issue. I'm going to put it up on our website. But it's I think about a 30-page booklet that describes the situation we're in and what we can do about it as citizens. And I too feel that sense of hope, because believe me, I'm 56 years old and we're starting over in life because the government attacked us. It's a long story, but they attacked us so severely that we lost our home, our savings, everything. I have a bogus criminal record. And we are still waiting for this administration to do some very, very simple and doable things. I mean, for Pete's sake, we drafted an apology letter from the DOJ that Pam Bondi promised she would issue, and she still hasn't done it yet. And this is important because some of these people who stood up for their kids, they're alienated from family, because just like the J6ers, the media portrayed them as violent, aggressive, and hostile.
1 minute, Kelly, 1 minute.
Yeah. So please go to realfreedomtalk.com. Also visit the peoplestribunecouncil.com. You can sign the petition to President Trump. You can also share this. And I think you'll really appreciate the letter. I think it expresses a sentiment a lot of us have. So far, Joe Hoft and Jim Hoft from Gateway Pundit. Joe is very supportive. He's willing to be a tribune. Alex Newman, Seek Smith, David Summerall, me, and Sam Sorbo. And what we're doing is we're saying these are active roles where we're willing to take the hits and sacrifice for the American people. We're going to show up. We're going to have an insignia that's going to identify us. And we're going to be tireless. We're going to have our doors open. We're already, we haven't officially launched, but we're already having people reach out to us, people who need pardons, like some of the cryptocurrency people who are arrested by the Biden administration for nothing. And we're going to be advocates. We're going to intercede for people. And we would like President Trump to recognize this body. What a legacy to pass on his golden age by instituting a new safeguard for the people. So we're going to be looking for really solid citizens who are completely courageous, unable to be bought, and that are willing to take the hits for the American people. And I think this could be historic along the lines of Magna Carta and even the Declaration of Independence. It's time for the people to stand up and take care of their own. So realfreedomtalk.com and the People's Tribune Council.com. Thanks so much for including me, Steve.
You got it. Thank you very much. Our next guest is Aubrey Campbell, founder of TBTR.us from Torrance County, Texas.
Hello, can you hear me, Steve?
We can.
Okay, thank you so much, Steve, for what you're doing. You're awesome. So again, my name is Aubrey. I'm the founder of Taking Back the Republic, TBTR.us. We do election security training and education and general research. I'm based in Tarrant County, Texas, where I've been studying what Hyder Garcia from Smartmatic in Venezuela did to Texas elections, specifically my county, Tarrant County, the largest red urban voting bloc in the nation. He came in and made a couple of devastating changes, and we see these similar changes happening across the nation. So it's not particular to one voting system, and it's not particular to one state or one county. These are agenda items that are being pushed across the nation, and they are surgically removing our provisions that allow us to audit the records. They're also violating some other civil rights in the process. I'm the author of the ABCs of election security. We've identified auditability, ballot secrecy, and chain of custody to be the three most crucial items in election security. We try to reduce it down to this at this point to make sure that people that are really not that well versed in what's happening with the elections, but they're concerned. They want to make sure their vote counts. They've heard that, they've heard of vote dilution. They've heard of, illegal people, dead people voting. So I have identified these three items, and I've titled it the ABCs of election security. This is to help people get into it, start to understand what they need to look for when they're both poll watching and working the election. We offer a poll watchers training course. I'm an expert poll watcher, been doing it since 2021. Watching Hyder Garcia in Tarrant County. And then when he jumped over to Dallas County, watching him over there as well. I can't actually poll watch in Dallas County, but we've got team members over there, and I was the lead watcher for a recount that occurred in Dallas County. And we have significant evidence of what's happening related to erratic date and timestamps related to the creation of election records, including early vote result tapes, election day result tapes, and other election records. Hyder has thoroughly destroyed our chain of auditability. Whenever we cast our regular ballots outside of precinct, not only does it destroy auditability because you don't have all of the ballots of a precinct together, but it actually facilitates a ballot secrecy issue that allows us to pull thousands of ballots. We worked with a couple of warriors down here in Texas, Susan Valiant and Barry Wernick. Both of them are actually on the ballot this time, but in the past few years, they've uncovered and exposed a gigantic ballot secrecy violation. This is not only a violation of the Help America Vote Act and state provisions related to ballot secrecy, but it's a civil rights violation as well, because the voters have a right to cast a secret ballot. When the issue was exposed, the Secretary of State initially denied it, but when it became undeniable, they actually issued an order for full redaction of election records, be it the ballots or the voter rolls. They authorized the redaction of a variety of election records because they weren't quite sure how we were doing it. And there are a few ways to pull ballots, but one of the easiest ways from publicly available records is to allow voters to cast regular ballots outside of their assigned precincts. And it's not every single voter, but it's a lot of them. It's too many of them. In fact, Barry Wernick outlined how many Democrats and how many Republicans in the state of Texas were affected in the last primaries because of this county-wide voting issue, which is in other states, they call them county-wide vote centers. In Texas, it's the same concept, where instead of casting all of the ballots precincts together, you allow the regular ballots to be cast county-wide. Okay, when you cast all the ballots of a precinct together, it protects ballot secrecy. And that inherently protects auditability because there's no need to redact election records. Okay. That also strengthens our chain of custody for precinct returns because we have all of the precinct returns together. All of those ballots are together. It makes recount speedy and audit speedy. Recounts are extremely expensive, at least in the state of Texas. I haven't participated in any outside of the state of Texas, but inside the state of Texas, the recounts are killing most of our candidates. Most people won't file a recount, even if they have decent suspicion over what happened in an election, because of the cost, just the sheer cost. Just the time it takes to sort the ballots back out by precinct takes several days. I mean, they nearly extort these candidates, in my personal opinion. But I've identified a way using our current voting systems that we can both cast our ballots by precinct while still honoring countywide access that's required at the state level. The use of provisional ballots is federally mandated. And basically what it is, what it means is that the provisional ballot law and federal law says that anybody who's not on the list of registered voters has to vote provisionally. Or if an election official says, no, I don't think you are who you say you are, you have to vote provisionally. We're going to put a little bit more scrutiny over those provisional ballots. What we need to stop is allowing our voters to cast regular ballots across the precinct, across the entire county. But the goal here, whenever you lock it back down by precinct, is to kind of catch some of those issues where you're seeing all of these late registrations being added to the poll books, the electronic poll books, and they're coming in not only the last day of the registration of the election, they're coming in throughout the election. 3-4 days into the election, we're seeing the number of registered voters go up and up and up. Then after the election, we see that there's a record that those late registrations cast a regular ballot. We need to stop that. If we lock down both early voting and election day by precinct without making any legislative changes at the state level, we can restore ballot secrecy and auditability and strengthen our chain of custody. These are all state and federal election laws that we need to stand on. Okay. None of the countywide laws, the countywide access laws in Texas, either for early voting or for the countywide polling place program, which authorizes countywide access on election day, neither one of those laws guarantee any voter a regular non-provisional ballot at any location. They just say you have to be able to vote at every location. So if we simply assign precincts to our existing polling locations and print a paper poll book, use that paper poll book to determine who gets a regular ballot at every location. And if they're not on that paper poll book, which is delivered at the beginning of early voting, the first day, then they vote provisional. We're going to have a little bit more scrutiny over some of those late registrations and see, was it the voter's fault that they were a late registration? Or did the Secretary of State, what usually it is the counties say the Secretary of State sent us all of these registrations very late and we didn't have time to enter them in before the election started. I said, okay, they're not going to cast a regular ballot if they're not on this paper poll book prior to the start of the election. But we can use those e-poll books to check people in, including provisional voters, and to generate their proper ballot style. So I have a proposal. You can read it at tbtr.us. And it's called Primaries by Precinct, because I know that in some of these upcoming primaries, you still have time to stand on this, to stand on the federal mandated use of provisional ballots to satisfy countywide access so that you can cast your ballots by precinct, whether putting all of the ballots of a precinct together in their assigned ballot box on location, or whether casting them provisionally where they are sorted and counted by precinct there. This is the best way to restore ballot secrecy, which will prevent them from having any excuse to redact these records, okay? We've got a few other reports that I think you guys will like, including a poll watchers training course where we tell you exactly what we look for, having been watching Hyder Garcia change our election procedures in our county, because it's a pretty good template of what's happening across the nation. Now, if you haven't heard, Hyder Garcia worked for Smartmatic in Venezuela. He got called a son of a bee by a committee in the Filipino legislature for issues they had with Smartmatic. Then he came to Tarrant County, Texas. Absolutely. Okay, thank you. He came to Tarrant County, Texas, changed way too much. We've had to start backing out of it and reversing it. And one of the last things we need to do is switch back to county voting by precinct. That's number one for everybody. You can't even do a hand count unless you're voting by precinct. Okay. Hyder Garcia then jumped to Dallas County, where he did his thing over there very swiftly. Now he's working for Hart InterCivic, who is about to release their new Verity Vanguard system, which is VVSG 2.0 certified. So they're preparing for a market takeover with that new suite. You can go and learn about that. They're pretty open about it. We try to make this stuff really easy to learn for people, including young people. Okay, we have constitutional philosophy that we put into coloring books right here. All right, we've got color the Pledge of Allegiance, constitutional philosophy, okay, and the Declaration of Independence. And we also have a new series of coloring books. Now, these are pretty niche, and they're not available on the website yet, but they will be. Our new coloring books are the ABCs of election security: auditability, ballot secrecy, and chain of custody. Okay. I haven't opened this as my sample packet yet, but inside these, okay, we have the terms that your kids need to see. What you got to do is you got to get this stuff in front of the kids early. Okay. So right here we say, we the people of the United States of America, in order to form a more perfect union. You see, they're black and white, they're black and gray. There's some grayscale. Okay. This is what you do. You get this information in front of the kids, and it's really simple, really easy. These are stocking stuffers. These are good, for little kids. You can use them with colored pencils, crayons. But this stuff right here, I feel like this is one of our most crucial reports, the ABCs of election security. But because the primaries are coming up, I really want everybody to go and read the primaries by precinct, as well as my policy brief on how the federally mandated use of provisional ballots satisfies countywide access, which will allow us to cast our ballots by precinct without being accused of preventing any voters from getting their proper ballot style at any location. Okay.
Okay,
So
Aubrey,
it's
you're
a
over.
unique proposal.
Aubrey, I'm sorry. Aubrey, you're
That's
over.
okay. Thank you, Steve.
You got it. Our next guest, our last guest, then we'll have our Raj come on, and then we'll have our Zoom. Samantha Zistatis, I can't pronounce it right. Statistis from State of Washington, the State Committee Woman, King County, Washington Election Integrity Chair. Come on down. You want to unmute her?
I think I'm on.
You
So good
Sorry,
afternoon, and thank you for letting me share. As you know, Washington is a tough place for election integrity, but our committees are working every angle we can. I've got an engineering background, so I'm particularly interested in making structure and process improvements. So our state GOP just ran an initiative for proof of citizenship to be registered, and while it was well received and a great educational opportunity, we didn't get enough signatures due to lack of funds for paid gatherers and reluctance of businesses to host for fear of reprisal or violence. It is possible that another initiative will be filed for a June due date. Again, have funding issues. The state GOP has filed 3 lawsuits, which are stalled. Still alive. Hopefully we can get something going there. But we've recently had a private citizen file a suit against our largest county regarding the excessive redactions of public's records request. Very thankful that Harmeet Dillon has sued Washington State for the voter roll information. We know that in King County, around 40,000 non-citizens are registered to vote, but we're blocked from doing anything. They keep cutting off our access. Our data analysts in King County have found some really bizarre details from our last election. Several key races showed substantial evidence of tampering, and I think they've got it narrowed down to a specific day that it happened. Over 50% of the ballots had already been received and put into the system, which provided the basis for election night results. After that, the margins fluctuated wildly for no apparent reason, but of course, ultimately shifting to the left candidate. We begged the incumbent Seattle mayor not to concede so he could retain standing, but he did end up conceding. So unfortunate there. We do meet regularly with the county election staff, and we've been able to get some more access to data. It had been waiting until after certification to get precinct level data, and now we have that interim data. Hopefully we can act on that. We were able to have the county create signs to warn people about the post office delays and directing them to drop boxes. Now in Washington State, drop boxes are actually our most secure route. I know people don't like them in the rest of the country, but for us, this is the best way to do it. We now have 2 Republicans on the Citizens Election Oversight Committee, and we're trying to increase that here. We do have our King County Elections Director race coming up, and so we're looking for a candidate there that will be seen as really skilled in things like supply chain or organizational management. I don't know, maybe they're from a banking background. We need to be seeing this as needing the scrutiny of a bank, as if you were an armored car. Our ongoing projects, since we're blocked in so many directions, we're working to change public opinion. So if the administration is able to get some national changes made, Washington voters will accept it. for things like rejecting mailed ballots. So this is a statement I like to use. Why are we outsourcing the transport of our precious ballots to a federal entity over which we have no control, no transparency, no opportunity to observe, and no guarantee of transit time? And what about the lack of privacy, since the envelope with the name, address, and signature, and sometimes party preference, is scanned? We've talked about, I see on the chat about people moving. Getting moved people off the voter rolls, even with the change of address, is just a disaster. So what we can do is engaging realtors, people in the moving business like U-Haul, to have available these change of address and voter cancellation forms readily available as part of a service. We're even considering looking at legislation that would make that voter canceling part of the purchase and sale agreement. To address the chain of custody issues and get people to actually think about the problems of mail balloting, we are encouraging them to check their ballot status before and after turning the ballot in, and to use the Dropbox. And again, I know that sounds funny for some other states. This election, we had about 70% of the ballots returned that way, most of them around Election Day. If we can get people going to the Dropbox, they're way more likely to accept going back to a polling location, since we're all mail-in balloting here in Washington State. And then finally, legislation engagement. We're continuing to recruit people to engage. We do have some pretty good tools for people from different sources where they can go onto the legislation site and do a pro and con while the bill is still in committee, hopefully heading it off before it even gets to the floor. So those are the basic things going on in Washington. It is the Wild West out here. And again, just like everybody else, we're struggling with getting people engaged and feeling like they have any say, any power going forward. We were fortunate enough to have 2 initiatives get enough signatures. Will be on the ballot. One is for keeping boys out of girls' sports, and the other one is making sure kids, their parents, know what's going on in the schools. That will be a really big fight to get those passed on the ballot, and we'll be hopefully using those in our candidate races this year. So again, thank you from Washington State. If anybody's got any extra dollars they want to throw for our legal funds here, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Raj, you're up.
Awesome. Thank you, Steve. So the common theme, as I was listening to a lot of what has been discussed here, is the precarious position that a lot of our states find themselves in. That's one thing I'm hearing. Another thing is people here in Florida took exception to some of the comments that suggested that Florida is doing an excellent job. Granted, Florida does do a little better than many other states. However, what I want to talk about in the next few minutes is the precarious position the state of Florida is in right now. So with the context that you've just heard everyone speak about, where the legislation have been passed, rules have been passed, and so on and so forth, that have put election integrity in a really precarious place, I want to draw your attention to what's happening right now in the state of Florida. First thing I want to do, just to encourage everyone, is the people in Florida have been working on for months on trying to get a bill sponsored that'll actually verify U.S. citizenship status. The Secretary of State in Florida was against that idea. The Florida Supervisors of Elections, which is the trade union that the supervisors of elections belong to, have been against that idea. So the leadership in the state of Florida, the Republican Speaker of the House and the Republican Senate President, have been against that idea. But with all that said, because of the arduous and tireless work that volunteers have done, the bill has now been sponsored. And this bill is simply going to require verification of citizenship. It will require, when an election crime occurs, it'll require that to be reported to law enforcement. Because it's not required, when it happens, it's not reported. And it does a number of other things. But the purpose of my comments here is This bill that you have on the screen is the one that's been sponsored. It's the one I'm talking about by Representative Jacques. This bill is the one that the Speaker of the House, the Senate President, the Florida Supervisors elections are wanting to pass. There are two bills in play right now. The bill that they want to pass does not have the required verification process, does not require reporting crimes to the Florida law enforcement, doubles the machines. You heard General Flynn talk about, I think it was General Flynn, you had some of the speakers here talk about how we should not be investing in more machines. In fact, the people who said that were complaining on this call that in their states, they've already doubled or increased the number of machines. That's on the ballot, that's on the bubble right now in the state of Florida. If this bill passes, more machines will be purchased. If this bill passes, you just heard two speakers ago that people who were able to get publicly available information like voter rolls, information about the voting processes, are no longer able to get that. In the state of Florida, if this bill passes, election technology reports and processes within Florida's system will be reclassified by this bill as sensitive election technology. By doing, why would they do that? By doing so, if you do a FOIA or you do a public records request, you will no longer be able to get what you currently can get. So I want to impress upon everyone that we have a phenomenal opportunity here. We have two bills on the bubble. Lead volunteers have done the work to get these two on the bubble. Now it's going to be up to us, the people in Florida, to make sure that this bill actually gets heard, assigned in committee, gets the necessary support and pushed forward. This bill has got the support of the so-called establishment. This bill is just going to sail through almost automatically. It won't require any participation from the public. It won't require any participation from the people on the call. This bill is the one the establishment wants. So we now in Florida have this phenomenal situation where we are in front of what so many of our colleagues in other states are suffering with. For them, they're dealing with the consequences of bad decisions. For us, in the next few months, we will decide if we will follow what has happened to them tragically, or if we will prevail, the people prevail. To help you with this, all this information is available at defendflorida.org. That's the website you're looking at here, defendflorida.org. If you're in Florida, you've got to get on top of this here. Also on this website, you will have information in terms of how you can talk to your officials and justify your reasons for wanting the more accountable bill to pass. You can click this button to receive that. If you don't want to do that, send an email to defend@defendflorida.org, defend@defendflorida.org, to give you an idea of what this report will give you. When you do that, you will have access to this letter written by the Florida Republican Assembly to our Speaker of the House and the Senate President, asking for reform. In addition to that, you will have access to this document here, this report, that shows why reform is needed. Just as an example, just to whet your appetite, right now in Florida, anyone, even a non-US citizen, can actually play a critical part in the election process. How did we get that? Is that something read online? Is that something we're speculating in? No, our volunteers actually FOIA'd the actual contracts that our supervisors elections have signed for employment personnel, and the contracts are right here. More than likely, when you speak to your officials, they will have no idea that this even is a problem. It's your job, my friends in Florida, to bring this to their attention. So this report here will give you all of that data, all of that information. The important thing here is, please, at the end of this call, a couple of things. One, you have to contact your elected official. You got to get that done. You've got to advocate for the bill that you want to be supported. You've got to contact your Republican Executive Committee. You've got to alert them. They have no idea almost all of them, that all of this is on the bubble right now. So it's your job, my friends, to make sure they're aware of it and advocate for your Republican executive committees to pass a resolution to actually prevent Florida from going the way that these other states have gone. And just to refresh everyone's memory, Colorado was once a bastion of conservative thought and policy. But because the people there didn't get in front of this in time, it is where it is. California, the same thing. So please make sure you take advantage of this. Again, if you want to get any of this information, you go to defendflorida.org, or you send an email to defend@defendflorida.org, and we'll send that over to you. Thanks very much, guys. Let's make Florida the pivot, the state that doesn't go the way a lot of these other states have gone. If anyone can do it, we can do it. If there's time that this can be done, it's now with the president in the White House, with all of this corruption being unfolded. There's momentum on our side. We got to harness it, take advantage of it, and make our destiny in Florida completely different from what's been happening elsewhere. Thank you, Steve. Back to you.
Okay, so I just saw coming across the screen, Governor DeSantis just authorized a special election legislature for redistricting, just came across. Now we're going to have our 9-minute, you want to get that up, and I want to just tell everybody how this happened. It came to me last night from John Goodman. John Goodman, Matt Struck, Ryan, all put this together. You can reach Matt Struck, friend of Tina Peters, at Real TT1776 on X, John Goodman at John Good 1965 on Truth Social, Ryan on X, MAGA_Punch Ryan at 1773 TV. We want to all pray for Tina. She is put through like a political prisoner. It's tremendously horrible. We'll talk about it on the next one. Hopefully she'll be out by then. We want to thank Larry Courtcamp from OBBM Network, who's putting this on all through his network, and we appreciate that. Go ahead and put that on. We're ready to go.
Steve, can you hear the audio?
Yeah, everything's good.
In Mesa County, Colorado, Tina Peters was an elected county clerk with a spotless record. No prior criminal history, not even a traffic ticket. Her job, under Colorado law, was clear. The county clerk is directly responsible for preserving election records. Statute 15.060 states it plainly. The responsibility for election records belongs to the county clerk. Everything changed after the 2020 presidential election. Tina noticed irregularities in the vote counts that didn't add up. Concerned about the integrity of the results, she did exactly what the law required. She preserved forensic images of the voting system hard drives before any records could be altered or destroyed. Those images revealed troubling discrepancies, potential evidence of fraud that needed investigation. Tina didn't hide her findings. She prepared 3 detailed reports documenting the issues and presented them directly to the Mesa County Commissioners, Janet Rowland, Cody Davis, and Scott McInnes, her elected bosses. She asked for an official state inspection of the machines. Their response? Silence. No action. Deaf ears. With her official channels blocked, Tina sought an independent expert to examine the system. That is when the backlash began. The Colorado Secretary of State, Jena Griswold, publicly declared Tina guilty of compromising voting machines, 2 full years before any charges were even filed or a trial began.
Well, I was the first Secretary of State in the country to actually have to deal with an insider threat. When the Mesa County clerk working with QAnon and the MyPillow guy compromised her own voting equipment trying to prove the big lie.
In a 2022 debate, Griswold repeatedly attacked Tina by name, laying the groundwork for public opinion against her long before the case went to court. Meanwhile, counties across Colorado were destroying 2020 election records within weeks, not the minimum 6 months required by law. The term Trusted Build, a software update process marketed as an election security measure, was used to justify these destructions. But Trusted Build did not appear anywhere in Colorado's official election statutes and was only added in September of 2025. It was never part of the law Tina was supposed to follow. Tina's images were the only surviving record of what really happened in Mesa County in 2020. When the Department of Justice later requested those records, Griswold's office claimed they didn't have to turn them over because they had already been destroyed. Tina was charged, not with election fraud, but with how she obtained access to the machines, identity theft, impersonating a public official, attempting to influence a public servant, and related offenses. The actual election data and the evidence of irregularities were never allowed to be examined in court. In 2024, Tina was convicted. She was sentenced to 9 years in prison, a harsh punishment for a non-violent first-time offender.
Ms. Peters, you are a privileged person. You are as privileged as they come. You are no hero. You abused your position, and you're a charlatan who used and is still using your prior position in office to peddle a snake oil that's been proven to be junk time and time again. You're as defiant as a defendant as this court has ever seen. You have no respect for the checks and balances of government. You have no respect for this court. You have no respect for law enforcement, and you do not have respect for your fellow colleagues. You are a charlatan, and you cannot help but lie, as easy it is for you to breathe. And prison is for those folks where we send people who are a danger to all of us. Prison is the only place that duly meets the purposes of sentencing in this matter. 9 years of incarceration.
But her ordeal didn't end there. As a 70-year-old Gold Star mother, Tina has endured brutal beatings from female gang members in her unit. From a letter by her attorney, Peter Ticktin, in 2021, Dominion, in an effort to cover its tracks, demanded that Jenna Griswold install a trusted build to take place on all Colorado Dominion brand equipment. Clerk Peters was lied to by both Dominion and Ms. Griswold's office and told that the trusted build would not wipe and overwrite the 2020 election data. After the trusted build was installed, Clerk Peters conducted a subsequent preservation of data, and she learned that it had, in fact, wiped and overwritten 29,000 files of the election records which were required to have been preserved by federal law. Clerk Peters' lone copy of the Colorado 2020 election is essential. Upon learning of the lone copy, Dominion immediately contacted Jenna Griswold in her capacity of Secretary of State that Clerk Peters be criminally charged with obtaining a copy of the 2020 election data. Prior to the installation of the trusted build, her life was threatened by a group of inmates to stab her and to kill her. Presently, she is in the smallest cell of her unit. It was formerly used for a washing machine and dryer. Despite having no disciplinary write-ups, she was moved to isolation under the phony narrative that it was for her own protection. But the truth is, the jail has a dedicated safe wing for low-risk inmates like Tina, non-gang members, and those without issues. Why wasn't she placed there? Because that wing allows unsupervised phone calls, which would have let her speak freely about the election irregularities she uncovered. Instead, her communications are heavily monitored and limited, stripping away her First Amendment rights. This isn't about jail policy or her safety, it's about keeping her silent. Many believe these conditions are designed to break her, to prevent her from continuing to speak about what her images revealed. Tina Peters could have looked the other way. She could have signed off on the results and kept her job, her freedom, her reputation. Instead, she chose to protect the integrity of the election process, even when it meant risking everything. She is not in prison because she broke the law to hide fraud. She is in prison because she tried to expose it.
I took one of these copies to every commissioner and to the DA. They did nothing. There were 29,000 election records that you can see on here in orange that were deleted from the people's Mesa County election system when they compared the first image that was taken and the second image. Gone, deleted. Another report, there were 36 wireless devices. Report number 3, ballots go in, there's a second fraudulent database that's created, then the ballot is changed, and we know it's been changed because it's lacking the .sha file. Mr. Rubenstein accused me in court of recording on my iPad. I'm at a commissioner's hearing. They see the iPad in my purse. All of a sudden, 22 minutes they delayed the commissioner's hearing in order to go get a search warrant. And that's when all hell broke loose. They came in, descended on it like it was a drug bust. grabbed the iPad. 66 recordings were extracted from the iPad. None of the 66 videos were recorded on February 7th, 2022. Then later, Rubenstein admitted he didn't know if I was recording or not. During the time they took this break, Janet Rowland bends down and says she won't want to come back here after this. And Cody Davis, that's sitting right back here, said, sacrificial lamb. He called me a sacrificial lamb.
Tina Peters followed her legal duty as county clerk. She reported suspected fraud through proper channels. She preserved records she was responsible for protecting. And for that, she's been made a political prisoner. The public deserves to know the truth about 2020. The public deserves answers about why election records were destroyed so quickly. And Tina Peters deserves justice. Demand transparency. Demand accountability. Demand freedom for Tina Peters.
Jean Griswold, elected with George Soros money, has offered to let me return to my job in elections, the one that you elected me to do. If and only if I make a public statement saying we don't need more transparency in our elections and that there was no voter fraud. I say never.
Okay, Raj. Hope everybody liked that. I want to just put this up again, Raj. You want to put this on the screen? Take the time, a couple of minutes to call
Yeah, it's on the
Governor
screen.
Sarah Polis at 303-866-2471. Ask for her to be released. We will put all our effort to President Trump to use whatever force he has to do to get her out. She has been incarcerated over a year. She has coughs, everything. You know, I speak to her friend pretty much every week. It's a shame. I know everybody feels badly for her. This video, if anybody wants it, it'll be on Stern American Rumble. You can text me, email me, and I'll send you a copy of it. Get it out to everybody in the United States, whether Democrat, Independent, or Republican. Thank you all for being on here. You want to close it up, Raj, and we appreciate everybody who talked today. I mean, it was a great, even I got to say it was a great meeting, and we want to thank General Flynn. I'll speak to him later this week, get some more information.
Yeah, thank you, Steve, for all the work that you and your team did. Again, we didn't get a chance to do it, but for those of you that are watching now and watching on the replay, please go to theflagshirt.com, theflagshirt.com. Why would you go there? The reason you go there is any purchase you buy at theflagshirt.com literally helps keep this program going. Theflagshirt.com. And you can also, again, email Steve at stern1054@aol.com. His phone number, 954-318-6902. Also, please spread the word about this event. Please get other people involved. And most of all, my friends, most of all, take the actions that you were inspired with when you were watching the show. As soon as the show's over, probably something else is going to come on your schedule, another call, another text, something's going to come up. Maintain the focus. Please, please, please take the actions that you were inspired to during this call, and we will see you on the next call. Thank you, Steve. Back to you.
All right. Again, either go to sstern1054@AOL or sstern1054@gmail.com. They're both there. You can put a call into 954-318-6902. That's my company number. I will get back to you. Want to thank everybody for joining us, for letting other people know about it. Go to Stern American Rumble for the copy. You can scroll through it. Also on Stern American Rumble, there's some clips from our last one, which were very important. And we'll get this out and we'll make sure everything happens. Thank you, everybody, for joining us and for being patient. We were a little bit late this time. Action, action, action. And Bud, thanks a lot for all your texts and wearing our shirt. We appreciate that. And hopefully, and